You can't see the third box, and then there's another one coming.
Nice. Oh, shoot. Oh. What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of AOS Trash Pandas. I'm your host, Rob, and with me, as usual, is my co-host, Carson. How's it going, Carson?
It's going really good. I just had a great weekend with my friend, Mr. Beasley here, or Mr. Beasley, as he likes to be called. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't call him that.
Absolutely not.
How are you? How are both?
I'm doing, yeah, doing good. Busy. But yeah, I guess that was Matt's introduction. I usually go a little bit more all out. Matt Beasley, famously very strong competitive player, mostly plays Zeech, but I know you're getting into Skaven lately. You were on AOS Coach's Skaven review show, which was very, very good. And yeah, it's good to have you on again. The last time we had you on was for the Zeech battletome in AOS 3, so it's been a while.
Yeah. So it's great to be here. I had a great weekend because Carson and I went to the national team, the North American team Masters, which was really fun, which is what I want to talk about. I played lots of stuff. I actually played Lumineth over the weekend. So neither team.
Wow.
I play a little bit of way too many things.
I mean, Zeech and Lumineth feel like they go hand in hand to me. I don't know about you, but they feel like they attract the same types of people. Like magic works in every phase. I guess Zeech isn't really quite. They're not as strong in every phase necessarily, but I don't know. Toolbox, technical.
You're not wrong. The generalization is I play blue decks.
Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you actually play blue decks in Magic?
Oh yeah, blue decks. Whatever the X is.
Nice.
Always.
I like the.
I haven't played in a long time, and I played it competitively for a long time, and it was always blue decks.
I would like to tell you that surprises me, but it does not.
I only get to tell that too, which I don't know what that's.
Whatever. So did you guys get a chance to check out the rumor engine this week?
I did.
Now.
It's kind of weird looking. It looks like some sort of like meaty organic chainsword of some kind.
Yeah.
Like a mutant chainsword of some kind. So like Chaos Space Marine maybe is kind of where my mind went. But
I was going to say, I'm wondering if it's something to do with Emperor's Children. Because they were expecting something, They're not like an army that I'm super into, so if I got the aesthetic wrong, I'm sorry. Thanks everyone for joining us. Sean, Dom, Stark, Jacob, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, it's interesting. It looks, it's kind of weird, but like my first thought was like, it's not Tyranids, but it reminds me of them. So I don't know. I don't think it's Age of Sigmar though, right? That's too much to hope for. Yeah.
Can you share it? I thought I was going to go look at it. I don't see it.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I can do that right now.
I'll send you a link.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. I've got it on a separate window because like I'm doing this new thing now to make it all the pictures easier to see. So Dimensional Cascade says high-low. I don't know who that was directed at, but
there's a Dimensional Cascade YouTube channel.
That's Ricky.
Oh, cool. Hey, Ricky.
Yeah, we used to stream games like every week.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah, you guys did. You streamed at Sparkle Party for a little while, didn't you?
We did, yeah.
Oh shoot.
That looks like a Dark Oath weapon to me, or Tyranid.
Oh, that would be
It looks
cool.
a lot like some of the Dark Oath weapons.
Does it? Maybe I haven't looked at them close enough, but
I have not looked at Dark Oath at all.
The Untamed Beast weapons are like almost exactly that.
Huh.
But it could be. I mean, if it's for AOS, it looks a lot like a Dark Oath weapon.
Huh. That's a cool idea.
True. Maybe it is. Yeah, because the Untamed Beasts, their weapons are like bone with like the teeth. They're like fangs coming out.
Oh, I see. Now I get what you guys are saying. I actually thought it was like skin or like exoskeleton looking kind of thing. But
that's what I thought too, like carapace or something like that.
Oh, I see. Maybe.
Oh man. I guess it's something chaos though, right? Like chaos related.
Yeah.
Adjacent is Ricky. Yeah. Yo, we had Ricky on too. He did the Gloomspite Gits review show back when Dale was on. So long time for him too. We had him and Dan on. Trog smash indeed, my friend. Trog smash indeed. So moving right along, we do have, okay, I've got a new system, so I'm just going to make sure I don't, there we go. First up is, so the next battle tome is officially Slaves to Darkness. Did you guys get a chance to check out the cover art? I don't know if we care about that.
Isn't Stormcast the next one?
Sorry, Stormcast is the next one. I'm sorry, but I mean, like, it's like,
oh, the next one revealed.
They previewed it. Yeah, they kind of showed off some stuff. That is on the docket. Should we talk about that first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Good.
So the Stormcast is up next. They showed the Battletome cover, which I think we already saw. Iridin the Witness and the different builds. Tornus the Redeemed. Lord Set, like all the stuff that you're getting. I saw a lot of people are converting the Lord Relictor into a Space Marine Chaplain or one of the other Space Marine heroes. Yeah, all sorts of really, great looking models, which we saw in the past, but the actual portion of news that I totally missed, and shout outs to Bahamut on the Discord for pointing this out, but we are getting a Stormcast Underworld's Warband as part of the rules. They used to be Tornus, or no, not Tornus. What were they called? I forget what they were called before, but now they're becoming like Skabix Plague Pack. They're becoming like a non-named set of heroes, and that's quite interesting. It looks like we're gonna get one for every army. Like I thought originally it was just because we don't have a Plague Priest on foot anymore in Skaven, so I thought they were just bridging the gap for us. But if Stormcast are getting one too now, I feel like we're gonna get one for every single army that had one before, right?
Yeah, I could see that. Right? Does every army actually have an Underworld's counterpart?
No. Or do they?
Aside from
Most of them do, but a lot of them are out of production.
Okay.
Like,
Right.
apparently, a lot of the issues with like the inclusion in Age of Sigmar is just like production availability stuff.
I heard
I
that.
could see that.
Well, and the problem too is that, like, because you know how they try to separate the different sections. Like, that's the reason why we're losing Beasts of Chaos from Age of Sigmar, was because like that they're owned by the Old World section of Games Workshop or something. So that was the BS excuse anyway. And same with Bone Splitters. They're going over to their section now. So the models will always be available. Anyway, I was thinking, because like Underworlds doesn't work the same way as Age of Sigmar. It's not like Clan Rats or whatever are always in production. You know what I mean? They come out, and then if you get them, you get them, and if they don't, you don't. They're gone forever. Obviously, they have the molds, but then, I was wondering if it's just like, well, now they're not in our section.
It actually works like magic. It's a seasonal rotation.
Totally.
Like the last couple of years of models are in, and they'll rotate out in sequence as new models come in.
And it makes sense because, they've got cards as well. And anyway, I'm just kind of curious, like, what this means for the future of Age of Sigmar more than anything. And speaking of that, we got some new previewed miniatures for Underworlds. And so we got some Stormcast. I mean, these guys are pretty vanilla, if we're being honest, right? Like, they're Stormcast, they do what it says on the tin. They look like what they should look like, right? Yeah. But then
the mask is kind of neat.
The one with the mask, I think she's kind of cool. I actually kind of like the crossbow guy more than anyone, just because it's just like, I don't know, like a bit of what do you call it? A Astartes Eliminator kind of vibe, where he's got like a kind of a big gun, and he's looking down it. And I like the cloak and stuff like that. I mean, there's still like, okay, fair enough. Yeah, like, sure. We both like those two. Like, they're fine, right? I'm not saying that there's no interesting Stormcast models. I'm just saying you compare these models to what's directly below them, and it's night and freaking day. One of them's holding some kind of drill gun, I guess. And there's a rat a freaking pet rat with a bomb on its back. And that's not to mention a little mini doom wheel and then some kind of weird scything monster rat thing and like a globadier with like a British style grenade. Like, this is crazy imaginative and super creative. Luckily, though, there's plenty of Stormcast players to split this with. So,
That's true.
Oh,
Matt, I think you're sharing your screen.
I am. I was sharing the rats. These are really cool.
Yeah, they are super cool.
They're super awesome.
Yeah, those are the. I particularly like the little like mini doom wheel thing. Or yeah, that's my favorite for sure.
That's absolutely, the tiny doom wheel is great.
Yeah,
I think that's my. Yeah, it's like one of those. Do you remember those bikes? They were like on those or whatever. I don't remember what it was from, but like someone tried to like invent like a kind of weird unicycle that uses gyros to keep you in the middle or something like that. A number of years ago.
There's a movie that gyrocycles in a big way. Remember that?
Oh, what was it?
I don't know, but yeah, I think you're thinking about, it was like a movie or a TV show, and it was like the plot of it.
Was it like Looper? Were they in Looper? Maybe not. I don't know. I remember it was like, I think I know what you're talking about. But
I just remember the it.
It was
from
South Park.
Yeah.
I was thinking of that too, and the way you make it go is demented, and I can't say it on the air, but yeah. Yeah, it was good stuff. Sensing Skaven bias, allegedly, Alex. I don't know. But like the nice thing too, though, is what I was going to say about this team is if you don't like the new Arch Warlock, who is apparently quite prone to breaking, I've got Ikit Claw, and so I'm waiting on him. I'm going to get him eventually anyway. But this guy would make a great stand-in provided he's on the right base size. You know, he's like a great kind of Arch Warlock sort of vibe. So anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of been the case with a lot of Underworld warbands. Is there's like a direct counterpart that you can swap it in for.
They do that on purpose, right?
Yeah, I guess that was a little problematic when the Underworld's warbands could be used in Age of Sigmar already, but if they can't, then it's kind of nice to be able to have that proxy.
That's true.
I would guess this one will be able to be.
No?
What's that?
No, I'm asking like, no, you don't think so?
No, I think this one will be able to be used.
Oh, okay, got you.
I would think so because it's a new production.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's usable. The only thing is like a lot of the Underworlds, their data sheets, like they either do something kooky and weird that's really useful, or they're dog crap. You know what I mean? And it feels like there's not a lot in between. There were some, like there are some outside cases. Like I think Molog was one of them. I thought he worked quite well. You know, like for some certain purposes. You know, especially in like Trugs. Like this is AOS 3 talk, but like. Anyway, like what's his name? Slink Skittershanks. He had a really good one in AOS 3 that was like quite useful. But then like what was the original Underworld's warband? I'm blanking on the name for Skaven, like was never good and was never usable, like not even once. Like he was just like a Claw Lord alternative. I don't know. I hope they're usable, and I hope that they're good, because I just want an excuse. Just give me an excuse, right? But yeah.
Yeah. I hope they're useful. I mean, just based on what they look like, my hope is that they're like some kind of not like no hole required deep striking.
That would make sense. Although, and like we have the what's it called? The drill, the warp grinder.
But like a cost-effective no hole.
No kidding. Yeah, 100 and like what is it? 70 points.
70 points.
And like people weren't taking them every time back when they were 60 points. Now, granted, you couldn't jump into combat, but you don't even know if you could do that. It's a 4-up. It might never even freaking happen, right? Oh, Big Ron, thank you for being a member. Thought and predictions on the new Stormcast cavalry. Also, you all rock. Thank you so much for the kind words.
Didn't we see like stats on that? The new Stormcast cav? No,
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
The new Stormcast cav are, I think he's talking about the new Paladors.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I have on the screen right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or here, should I share it with you?
Oh, Carson has now explained to me that you have another screen up that shows the messages, which is why I showed the other screen because I didn't know that was happening.
I see. God, I appreciate that.
It's all becoming clear slowly.
Nice, nice.
I always have the stream on like one monitor and then the call on the other monitor so I can see what Rob's looking at and stuff. And then I can also see the chat, which is nice. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's all coming together. I've figured out the technology.
Yeah.
We're also, pretty janky. Very important question in the chat.
Yes.
Extremely important. We'll get back to Big Ron's question in a little bit. Sarah Cruz is asking, question for Matt, first of all. Which member of the championship winning Shaman team you say is the cutest?
This is clearly the most important thing.
He seems so put out by this question.
I feel like we need
such good options.
I feel like we need some clarification there.
Yeah, like cutest in what sense?
Yeah. Because like depending on the answer to this, I feel like you could answer Matthias, right?
Because he's cute. Yeah, that's
he's
got like, that boyish charm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He has like
but maybe if you're really into like mustaches or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. For instance.
Yeah, like
or like facial hair that isn't like, very long.
Do you mean like cute as in like a porno sense? Then I feel like a certain person, you know, or
definitely
like
Rick.
how
Ricky.
much?
Yeah.
Wait, where was the certain person going within the porno sense? Like that's what I'm really curious. Like, where did your brain go, Rob? Like one of these 8 men.
I mean, like there's someone that definitely stands out when it comes to like porno stashes. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
I've never got. You mean it's like Victorian era boxer? It's like someone walking into a porn set, like, yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go with Ricky because I see him in a unicorn onesie every Halloween, and it is adorable.
There you go, Sarah Cruz. In Matt's eyes, he says in Matt's eyes. So like, yeah,
just
I feel like
adorable. It's a grown ass man with a 4-foot beard and a unicorn onesie.
Yeah, no. Alex asks, did they ID Matthias at the event?
They absolutely were going to, but didn't. He preemptively handed them his ID when he bought a drink, and it was great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I'm not as like boyish looking as Matthias, but the last time I had my ID checked was when I was 38. I remember because I was exactly double the age you need to be here in Canada, and he forced me to have 2 pieces of ID. And I was like, you're taking this too far. Like I'm 38. Like I'm clearly 38. Like anyway.
You're reading this the wrong way. I thank people when they ID me.
No, I know it wasn't that.
Gray hair to the child inside.
Totally. And I have some gray hair in my beard. Not as much then, but like it felt good until he wouldn't drop it. And I didn't have I was like, I don't have another piece of picture ID. Who carries 2 pieces of picture ID? And then, but there was a little bit of a language barrier. And then he's like, oh, no, it doesn't need to be picture ID. A credit card will do. And I'm like, why did you say that? I was holding a credit card to pay this whole time. Like, you could have just said a credit card. Anyway, it was more just the inconvenience because it went on. But back to Paladors. Do you guys see the new Paladors? What did you think? I don't want to forget to talk about them after the kind subscription.
Here, I'm going to link this in the Google Meet. You can put it on the screen. You can't see. If you open that, you get an image.
I can't. Here, 1 second. Boop. Oh, shoot. 1 second. I have to put it in the other one because I have to trim this one down. There's so many things. There we go. There's that. And then boop. And boop. Oh, and then I got to change it over here. Okay. Yes. It's now on screen.
Well, that
I saw this, by the way, and this picture is amazing for many reasons. But
I want you to know, I was asked if I was wearing makeup, and so when you asked who the cutest was, I was not wearing makeup. So you know.
That's true. Got a real big display of my double chin in the back there. I just want to make that.
Yeah. My favorite part.
Matthias put his hand in front of my face for this picture too.
Oh, is that his hand in his now?
What?
Like,
yeah. Oh, is there a different one? Hold on.
There's another one. I think it's. No, we have it in here. I have it in here. I was gonna wait until we got to the tournament portion.
Yeah. Sure.
But
I saw this one today and I thought it was a good picture.
this one's amazing because Matthias like clearly has like issues like looking into the camera. I just zoomed in for everyone at home. So he's the only person not looking into the lens. So we were making fun of him a lot. Yeah.
Paladors, the new Paladors.
Yes.
The problem is they're a new unit. And so when they come out, for the most part, they'll have been play tested. And they'll generally be reasonable for their unit type and points bracket. Right. And the existing Paladors are broken.
Like wait. What? These are Stormstrike Paladors. So there's different Paladors now?
I'm assuming they're a different unit.
What?
Yeah. I'm assuming they have totally different rules.
I was going to say they look like they're on bigger bases, but I was like, I don't know. I don't play this army, so not my job, not my prob. Wow. That's kind of crazy. Like even for them, right? Like doesn't it feel like we're getting like two of the same unit? Now I get why he's asking though. I thought he was just asking about the sculpts.
But so my guess is at launch they will be less point efficient than the existing Paladors because what they've got 2 million different Stormcast cavalry, which they have attempted to point in an equivalent way, and in one case like really failed compared to the other ones. Right. And the new unit will probably be in the middle of the points efficiency range because it will have got the most attention and balancing, and so be worse than the guys that move 20 inches or retreat in charge.
Totally.
That's my guess.
I mean, like Paladors are one of the best units in their book, right?
Right.
The current Paladors.
That's right. They are the best unit in their class of unit in the book.
Right. Exactly.
Which in many books, we just have one unit in that class, but Stormstrike has so many. You're just like, cool, what's the best cav right now?
Right. Wow. Dang. That man, I'm sure glad that you were here for this question because I didn't even realize that they were different models. I would have just talked about, I think the base sizes look different, and
I could be wrong. they could
no, I think you're right. Like I didn't notice until I don't think they were old ones are called Stormstrike Paladors. So, yeah.
No, they're Vanguard Paladors.
So Warpstone says, but don't most. So I understand the confusion here, Warpstone. He says, don't most of the new Skaven releases also feel like a new version of an existing unit? So in the case of the Skaven ones, they're replacing stuff because the sculpts were freaking ancient. Like some of them were 30 years old, right? So like the case of the Globadier, like that was a 30-year-old model, and now we're getting the new ones, which look unbelievable. These ones are going to coincide at the same time, is what Matt's saying, with the current existing Paladors. So you're going to have two different flavors of Paladors.
I really wish they would just replace them.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the problem is that if people have Paladors, they don't buy the new one because the models are relatively updated.
I mean, like, I'm more tuned in than the average Age of Sigmar player in general. So, like, if someone's just a very casual player, they're not going to know that these are different models. They're just like, oh, they updated the models and then move on, right? So, yeah. I agree. I think this is going to hurt their sales. I mean, it's always probably kind of been the case where they've got like Liberators versus, what are they called? The Spear guys?
Vindicators?
I think that's right. Yeah. Anyway, like
the new Spear.
See what I mean though? This is the problem. Carson's like, isn't it Vanquishers? Like, I think it's Integers or something like that, right? Whoa, you got a ghost in your house. That's pretty cool. So anyway, yeah. So Big Ron, there you go. Yeah. Okay. So before we dwelling on this too much, they showed some cool new models. The new Chaos Sorcerer looks amazing. They showed the new Dark Oath Raiders. It looks like they're getting a new Spearhead box. And yeah, just looks really cool. So that's coming out not soon, but relatively soon. And then the last piece of news was the Christmas boxes also got announced. Cities of Sigmar, Flesh Eater Courts, Iron Jaws, and Maggotkin of Nurgle. Did you see these, Matt?
Yeah.
What did you think?
I mean, the cities one is always tempting, right? And actually, the one that I think will sell well is the Nurgle one because it's got that guy that's constantly out of stock.
Yeah.
And he is in the Nurgle Regiment of Down, which is pretty good.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. And I mean, like, I know they were strong last edition, but the guys on the flies were consistently out of stock, as was the Meyer Creed Rot or whatever they're called. The
Rotmeyer Creed.
Yeah, Rotmeyer Creed, the Warcry warband. So
they're not as solid this edition.
That makes sense because now it's the new edition and you got to rotate stuff. Like I know because before it was like if you any hit, so shooting attacks would also put on disease points, and now it's like, are you in combat or are you not? So,
right.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about Nurgle, which is the opposite of Stormcast, is it's a relatively small range, and so like when you buy a Nurgle holiday box, when the book eventually comes out, most of the things will be relevant things. You're not like guessing if that's the particular tap that will be good.
It's so true. And it feels like you can kind of get away with like buying the models you like more in this army than in other armies. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like because IDK has such a small range, you can play most of it. It's traditionally thralls are like the one thing you want to play. Like they're not as strong, right? Traditionally. Anyway, yeah, I actually like am the most tempted by the Maggotkin one, but luckily Kenrick's getting into Maggotkin, so I'm all good. And actually, no, that's not true. I was the most tempted by the Iron Jaws one, but I can't have any more armies. I can't do it. And I've already got FEC. Yeah. Carson, do you think you're going to get any of these?
The cities one was definitely tempting. I've been like slowly building up my cities collection just as a flex purely based on tournament winning so far. But so like
piece of crap.
Yeah. from like an ego perspective, I'm like, shall I wait until I win more cities to build the city's army, or should I buy more cities?
You're just such a piece of crap. It's crazy. What's in here though is pretty good though. Like other than Fusiliers, yeah, like, and I mean Fusiliers is something you kind of feel like you always need anyway. So
I think the cannon I could probably do without.
Oh,
that's
really?
That's kind of how it is right now. I think.
Huh. I heard a lot of people saying that they wanted another cannon a lot. So that's interesting. I don't know. Maybe they're not good right now. Maybe that's a hangover from AOS 3. But yeah,
Cannon had an issue that when it came out, it was like just not anywhere as good as a steam tank. But like steam tanks aren't the same as they were before. It's 130 points.
Okay.
It's an artillery piece.
Right.
For 130 points, it's just not. It's not bad. It actually compares pretty similarly to like the big crossbow in Cruel Boys.
Okay.
But it doesn't get randomly teleported across the board.
Right.
And so, and its volume is low enough that you're never gonna like completely change your game plan because of one of them.
Yeah. The thing that I could see is like you have the Fusel Major, which if it shoots at something, you get +1 to hit. So you have a bunch of cannons, you can benefit from that being on 3s and 2s instead of 4s and 2s, which is kind of nice, but you're kind of teching into something which already isn't great, I think, when there's better combos to be teching into for cities. So that's kind of why I'm saying like
that's interesting.
Cannon. From a model perspective, I love that model.
So rad. It's like one of the coolest models in the whole lineup for cities, I think. So
yeah, absolutely.
I want it to be good.
Yeah.
You know,
artillery is hard to point because if you make it just a little bit too deep, people spam it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like, how do you get it just right?
Yeah, it's true. It feels like that was one of the few things they had a good answer for back in the fantasy days, where it was just like this many. Actually, we even had that in Age of Sigmar. It was up to 4 artillery up until Age of Sigmar 4. By the way, is the Fusel Major or whatever, is that the guy on the Ogren?
Yep.
Oh my god, you got to have. Those are the 2 coolest models, man.
It's a very cool box.
Dang.
It is tempting for sure because it's all stuff. Actually, no, that's not true.
Well,
I was going to say it's all stuff that I don't have yet, but I have Cavaliers and a cannon already. So.
Oh, crazy!
And then maybe the Relic Envoy. Did that come in the army box?
I don't think so.
Can't remember. I know the Alchemite Warforger did, but I don't know if it was a.
I don't
Relic
think
Envoy as well.
You're talking about the guys like with the spy and like all that other stuff.
No, that's the Command Corps. I'm talking about. There's like. the one marshal, the free guild marshal, and then like his like squire, which is actually a token, and then basically he's just like handing out a bubble of being able to give orders in a circle from a unit. Yeah. I might already have one of those via the army box. So.
Wobbly Chimmy says, I don't like the ogre rider. He looks top heavy and goofy, but that's kind of part of the charm as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean? Like, you're right. Like, if some guy was on there and the ogre is marching around, doop doo doop, like, you can hardly imagine shooting a gun from up there. But I don't know.
I guess you could say like, it's not the same like mood as most of the rest of the New City stuff.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's kind of weirdly grim to have like some guy like riding on top of this thing that's strapped to someone's back. But I get what you're saying there for sure. I don't disagree. Anyway, yeah, like let us know in the chat and in the comments which one, if you guys are interested in any of these. I've wanted to play Iron Jaws for a long time now, but no more armies. Not anytime soon. I've got enough Skaven to bury myself in. Yeah.
Carson, I want to see you finish your Slaves of Darkness army because, like,
that's what I'm moving on to that next.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. Yep.
The full breadths. That's the way to go.
We all agree on that one. Okay, so the AOS Masters. Bam. Oh wait, the first picture you sent me is the results, Carson. Is that okay?
Spoilers. Oops. Yeah. My bad.
I need to see what you're actually saying. I got to do this differently.
Yeah. So there was if you don't know, there was a event called AOS Masters, which is really North American Masters, which is a big teams tournament that happened for the first time this year, where essentially the United States and Canada were split up into 8 different regions, and each of those regions put together a team of 8 players, some with a non-playing coach, some not. And then they sent them to Boston, and we duked it out over the last, I guess it was Saturday and Sunday this weekend. And the Pacific Northwest came out victorious. I've got my medal here. Oh, it's disappearing into the meat dimension, but here it is. And I've got a giant hammer that they gave each of us, which is pretty cool.
That's like one of the cooler trophies I've ever seen.
Yeah. No,
it's
yeah.
Like a Liberator hammer.
We didn't realize that we were going to be getting these. Well, obviously because we didn't think we were going to win, but like we didn't know what the trophies were going to be of any kind. So there was a bunch of people on the team that had me check luggage with the hammers in them. So I just shipped an entire suitcase of hammers back to Canada and hoped that TSA didn't mind. And they didn't
put that in one of the pictures, actually.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Should I bring that up next?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
There it is.
But yeah, so I guess kind of like the purpose of tonight's stream is just kind of Matt and me and Rob talking about everything leading up to the tournament, all the preparation that we did. As Matt said before, kind of demystifying the process of like how did we get to this point and what did we learn from it. So I guess we can kind of start with like how did we form the team? You want to talk a bit about that, Matt?
Sure. Yeah. So Jeremy Cooper came up actually before the North American Masters. He came up to Pacific Northwest as a region and mirrored the setup that they have down in Texas for the Texas Masters. And what that was is an invite-only event he ran. He's run it for 2 years now. There's another one coming up in a couple months, where he would take your top sort of like 5 in-region events, and based on the size of the event you're placing, you get a score. And then at the end of the season, you get invited to an invitational for players in the region. Because we had that, what we did for the first North American Masters, he would take take the top 8 players off that list by default and invite them. And so Jeremy asked me to captain the team. I had a good amount of teams experience because I've done the Worlds team. And so we did that by default. We had a couple of people who couldn't go, sort of And then what we ended up with as a result of that was 4 people from the Seattle area at East, but like in Washington, and 2 from BC. And so then the next 2 invited were the top 2 players not from that region, who actually were quite close on that selection list anyway, which was Michael Toons and Alex Gonzalez from Portland. And so we ended up with a regionally distributed team based on the within region rankings, plus some evening out for sort of sub-region distribution.
Nice. So I know that there was a team.
I have one other comment on that.
Sure.
We seem to have been the only ones who did anything like this at all, and almost every other region nominated the commissioner and captain, and then just like decided who they wanted the team to be.
Sorry, by the way, just want to. Everyone's throwing Matt under the bus here. So I was moving like a screen off to the side so I could interact with the chat, and then it opened up and started playing it, and I paused it, and then it kept playing anyway. So everyone's like, Matt, pause your damn stream, man. Like, it's doing all this stuff, and it was totally me. It wasn't like exactly my fault, but it was me. It wasn't Matt. Poor Matt. Anyway, so sorry guys. It was, I corrected it really quick. Yeah.
Blame you guy.
I'm sorry.
IT Matt. Problems on Saga of Dice? What do you mean? That never happens.
I mean, it's why it's called the AOS Trash Panda podcast, is because, yeah, that's what I want people to think of when they think of this podcast, is a raccoon going through your garbage, and then you flash your light on it, and it kind of goes and looks at you like what is going on, because it doesn't understand technology. Yeah, that's exactly. Exactly.
So you're saying that no other teams really like went through the process of like building a team in this way, or like having you said that Texas does have a ranking system like this, and they didn't build their team based on it?
I think they didn't use it.
So I this whole system, and they're just like, nah, don't need that.
Like, most of them definitely didn't. Most of the ones I talked to did not. And so we had to, extremely sort of metrics-based process for team construction.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it worked out well for us. That's for sure. Jeremy Cooper's in the chat actually saying, "Seems like our method was the best, though." Lol.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, sorry.
No, I agreed with it, because it was very like, one thing I think can be worrying when you have a system like this, especially for the first year, is it can be kind of nepotistic. Yeah. Where it's just like you have a regional person and then like a captain, and it's just whoever they know or whoever they're friends with. And even if they think they're being impartial, there's a chance that there's like an internal bias going on there of some kind.
Yeah.
So having some sort of like metrics to back it up is always good to kind of prove to people that the team was picked for a reason, other than just, I know these people and I want them on the team.
Well, before I go into it real quick, a couple of things. Earlier, Ledivicus and Bahamut said that they're not buying any Christmas boxes because they're just buying Skaven. I want to say good guys, good people, good rats. And then Wobbly Chimmy said AOS should have a raccoon army, and I just wanted to say I totally agree. I would absolutely buy an army of like rocket raccoons or something along those lines. Like, I know that's a little scryery, but I don't know. Anything along those lines, like, sign me right up. But sorry, you were saying about.
So that was the selection process. I think Carson's right. You always worry about, especially when you get something new, when you've never done this before, like you get nepotism accusations. I think you get that whether or not there's actually nepotism. I know there were concerns for a long time about that for the U.S. team. And having been part of that process, it is quite meritocratic. It's just more opaque and complex.
Well, but like, do other regions have like a tournament for like because locally people may not know, but we have the Northwest Masters tournament that's been going for a long time now. So there's already kind of like a system in place almost where, you know what I mean, of showing and sort of proving who the best local tournament player is, right?
Yeah. That's what Matt was saying that that's what Jeremy Cooper brought from Texas. Effectively, is they have a system like that.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
but like
there's some other reasons to do it. One thing that was really cool is to see like we go to this event and like these other metas exist in relatively concentrated forms, and it's weird because it's like the regions cover the whole U.S., but they don't really. What you actually have is some number of metas where there's cross-pollination, and ours is actually relatively unified because it's basically like the I-5 corridor from a little bit of south of Portland to a little bit north of Vancouver.
I-5, by the way, is a highway. People might not know.
What?
I-5 is a highway. I'm just explaining because like some people are in the UK and are all over the place. So just for people who may not know. But what I was saying, before I forget, what I was saying earlier was not like about like I think I worded it improperly, but like you were saying that like that Texas has this system where the Texas Masters or whatever, right? But I don't imagine that many other places have that style of tournament, right?
I don't think so, but I don't actually know that.
Okay, I wasn't sure. That was my question, and I worded it terribly, so I'm sorry. But
no, I think you're right, but I can't confirm that.
Yeah, fair enough. I wouldn't know for sure, but I thought maybe you might know.
So at least Texas, California, and the Pacific Northwest all have that. All have like a regional singles masters.
That makes sense.
Yep. And then I heard that so Jeremy was like the representative for the region. You're the captain that was picked. How did it come to be that British Columbia was going to be scooped away from Canada into Chamonix instead of as part of Azir? That's something I've actually never heard confirmed exactly how it happened. But...
annexation, just pure and simple. No, actually, I argued for that. I also used precedent, which is the PNW as a wargaming region predates Age of Sigmar. There was a national singles masters where each region could bring 8 people, but they competed a singles event in Warhammer fantasy battles for multiple years. And I went to that event for multiple years. And in that event as well, the Pacific Northwest region included BC. Dale of Warp Dice went to that event with me. I've known him since going to national events in Warhammer Fantasy.
Wow.
And the region, the BC has been part of the PNW wargaming region since before someone had the bad idea for the initial transition from 8th edition and Age of Sigmar.
Yeah. No, but doesn't it kind of also make more sense because like the rest of Canada is basically Ontario, right?
No, and Quebec.
Okay, fair, but they're next to each other though. Whereas like
yes. So and that was the other. So we had this conversation. It was like on the one hand, we've always done it this way. Yeah. On the other hand, there's a reason for that. It's because I could drive to Carson's house in 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And Carson going to Ontario is a flight, like a long one.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's a long to fly. Yeah.
It takes longer to fly to Ontario than exactly. Yeah.
But the fun version is that it was annexation without any choices involved.
Fair.
And then because we won, we got to keep you all for another year.
Yeah.
That's right. When we played against Canada, it was the Battle of British Columbia. If they beat the Pacific Northwest, then British Columbia would return to Canada.
Oh my goodness.
But that didn't happen. So
I think if they're really getting contested, there's like a self-determination component that should be involved.
Yeah. Like, wasn't it in the 70s that like BC and Washington and Oregon were going to like form their own country? And the leader of that was Cascadia. Like, right? And then the leader of that whole thing was like assassinated, and he was from BC, I think.
I don't know about that part, but I know that Cascadia was like a movement.
Yeah,
it goes all the way down to California.
Yeah,
was it California? I couldn't remember.
Northern California up through BC.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Jeremy is saying I think it was also because we had the master circuit set up prior to the team tournament. Yeah, and you maybe have been in different conversations I was. In fact, I'm sure you were. I feel zero ambiguity about it because it predates any of the people who were making those decisions. It's like it was already a thing. It was said a decade ago, guys.
As much as I love my fellow countrymen, I actually agree.
I agree too.
it's so like I know so many people in the Pacific Northwest meta, and the first time I experienced the Canadian meta was actually Battered Bison, like in June, I think it was. Yeah, early June. And that was just going to Winnipeg. I didn't even get to go to Ontario, Quebec, like experience like a big tournament like Grand Clash, and I still haven't because it's just so hard to get out there. And with that big of a barrier in place, like there's no way that Vancouver can be connected to the rest of the country. So
it just
I'm going to Kippers in a couple months, which more people should come to, and they're still selling tickets. And so if you're not going to Kippers, there's plenty of ferry rides. You should get tickets today. Yeah. I went to Kippers as part of the region that I was representing and got regional points for Kippers for Warhammer 10. Like, this stuff is old. It's not new. We've been around a while.
Yeah, it's true. But like, you know, what's funny though too is like a lot of people who aren't from this area won't know this, but I used to work in the tourist industry, and I would talk to people from all over the world, but a lot of people from Washington, you know, because they'd come up and they drive up here and visit, and they would come up and go to our Canucks games because you guys didn't have a hockey team for the past like 40 years or something like that. So I have met people who were season ticket holders for the Canucks for decades, and they would drive up here and go to Canucks games. And I was saying like to them, like, yeah, like we cheer for the Mariners. We don't have a baseball team, so we cheer for the Mariners. Like we tend to cheer for the Seahawks, and they cheer for the Canucks. Like we get your news. Like, you know what I mean? Like I feel
Toronto.
Yeah, Como and King 5 and like all of like we used to get them all.
Oh no, I'm just saying, yeah, you were cheering for the Mariners. You weren't cheering for the Blue Jays.
No, exactly. I mean, like I cheer for anyone but the Blue Jays, just to be super clear. Yeah. The Maple Leafs, like anyone but. Actually, no, that's not true. We definitely, Vancouver has a thing with New York for hockey because of '94. But I won't go into that. I won't start another war. Okay, so you guys have formed the team. Okay. How did you go about preparing for this kind of unique, because this is the first one. This is the first time they've ever done this tournament. So
it's a good question. And it turns out, which I did not know when we set this up, that we prepared more than anybody else, which is great.
Shots fired. God dang, man. I didn't know it was gonna. I approve. I completely approve. But wow.
The whole show is just gonna be, we're the best and we prepared and we won. So screw you guys. We're coming back next year.
Yeah.
I think it's that we actually, it's sort of the opposite. I think that we can attribute a lot of our win to preparing to play as a team and working through stuff together. We did 2 weekend-long practices. My extremely noble and self-sacrificing wife, Madeline, took herself and my daughter, Eleanor, to her parents' house for 2 weekends this summer. And the entire PNW team came over from Friday through Sunday, and we played games. And when I say we played games, I mean we got reps in, like an average of like 9 per player for each of those weekends. Wow. There was, I would say it was like the Team America practices, except those have a lot more drinking involved. Like I think we had like 1 drink. Actually, the second practice, there were a total of 2 drinks consumed across the entire practice, and one was Matthias. And so like, we had 2 weekends where it was like, get work done. Learn the pairings, learn the matches. Is it working? Is it not? We have multiple players switch armies. We had, on average, a player on the team in those 2 weekends got 18 round 5 GT games against players to stress test what they were doing, learn what they were playing against, and figure out what adjustments they need to make. And I think that preparation, the dedication everyone showed really paid off.
Wow. Are you comfortable?
No, you can go ahead.
I was curious because you said multiple people switched armies. Are you comfortable? Like, can you tell us who they are and what they switched from and to? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So the Matthias is playing Doc for practice 1, a Marathi list. And then early on in practice 2, we were like, this is just not cutting it. He had played against Chris, who's a club member of ours in DC. I don't know if he didn't play against him. I think Chris was here to play against somebody else. And Matthias has played Slaves to Darkness for quite a while as well. He played it at Worlds. And so they were just talking through like the current Slaves to Darkness build and how good it was. And she's like, all right, I'm going to play some reps with this. It just started beating us up. And it was like, it's like, all right, this is it. This feels better. It feels different. And that was a good switch. And I can talk about why. But it was conditional on another thing that happened, because in our team construction, we wanted to have a mix of armies good on spread maps and armies good on dense maps. And he was playing Doc, which was good on spread maps, and Slaves to Darkness is good on dense maps. Jeremy and Lemoyne have been playing cities, which was quite good on dense maps, but it was just continuing to, like, I will say that none of us collectively, including me, have really broken the code with cities. Like, I'm sure, 3-2-4-1 a GT, it's fine, but like, none of us were able to break the code to be like, all right, this is what really gets it done with this army against players who know how to disrupt the game plan at once. And so in a similar way, we had another guest player, Stark, come over. We're working through how his Stormcast list works in the context of how it plays against our lists. Jeremy's played Stormcast a long time. He's quite good at Stormcast. He's put up some 5-0s of Stormcast long before this. And we decided that, like, and ultimately Jeremy decided, because he needed to be like comfortable with the army he was taking. We're just saying that, like, we know it works. We don't have to redesign the list. Jeremy is a good Stormcast player. We're going to take that build. And so that let Jeremy flip from a dense cities list to a wide board Stormcast list. And Matthias switched from the wide board Doc list to the dense Slaves to Darkness list. And those ended up being really smart switches. For a couple reasons that have to do with the dominant pieces of the meta that just like because this was using the last patch, right? So we've now moved on from this balance, but there were armies that everyone was going to have, and two of those armies were Ruse and Foxes as one, and 18 Trolls as another. 7 out of 8 teams had 18 Trolls, and I think 7 out of 8 teams had Ruse and Foxes. That Slaves to Darkness list, along with Carson's Ogres list, along with our OBR list, all bully Trolls. And that meant in 3 out of 4 rounds, we got to pair against Trolls in a way that, like, we got big wins against Trolls because we happened to bring multiple things that were good against them.
What bullies Trolls?
Slaves to Darkness.
Oh, yeah. That makes
and
sense.
Nagash, and for the 3d6 charge monstrous infantry in OBR.
Okay.
Trolls are incredibly good, but there's a few things that can really break them, and so we were able to take multiple of those because of that switch. And on the flip side, Foxes is very hard to pair against, but Jeremy's Stormcast list is really solid against Foxes, and so that gave us stronger things against the things everyone had.
Yeah. What's funny about that, though, is that I don't think Jeremy ever actually played against Foxes.
He didn't.
I think the funny thing is that we had our resident OBR player, Michael Toons, playing against Foxes twice. And we were like, this is going to be a bad matchup. You're supposed to lose. Just try and keep it as close as you can. And the first time we played against them, he won. And the second time we played against them, I think he lost, but it was like extremely close by 1 point. Yeah, exactly. So shout out to Michael Toons for just turning that completely on its head.
Absolutely. And someone asked in the chat, just in case people aren't reading it, who designed it. And Alexander Gonzalez says, my twin and Corsair captain, Nick Gonzalez, made the logo. And it is a cool logo. I actually told Carson when I saw it, it's like simple, but it evokes, the mountains and the water and stuff. So it's pretty cool. So another thing too. So we've got all you guys, the whole team up on the stream right now. Could you tell us who played what?
Sure. Oh, I see it. Yeah, go ahead, Carson. Go ahead.
I can go through it if you want. So going left to right, we've got on the left, we've got Michael Toons, who is our OBR player who played Nagash and 4 more Ghasts. Second
he's
from the left is...
He's the one holding his thing, right? The necklace, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
okay. Just making sure.
Yeah, he is, yeah. Then second from the left is Honest Wargamer Rob, who didn't play for our team.
Nope.
But he's trying to steal our glory. And then holding him in the back is me.
Yep.
This guy. And then directly in front of that is obviously Matt. And then to the left of Matt's head, you have Alexander Gonzalez.
To the left.
Who was playing to the right of Matt's head, sorry,
Yeah.
is Alex Gonzalez, who in the sunglasses was our Nighthawk player who had an interesting build. It wasn't like completely standard Nighthawk list. I know he had some like specifically anti-infantry tech, which was kind of cool. To the right of Alex, who's got the big smile, is Jeremy Lemoy, who's one of the two Lemoy brothers. Jeremy was playing Stormcast, as Matt said. To the right of Jeremy is his brother, Chris Lemoy, who is our Soul Blight player, who did extremely well. I think he was the last game. Oh, no, you were the last game in the round against Texas, but it was basically down to your guys' 2 tables. And it was just like, can Chris win bigger than you're going to lose? And the answer was yes. And that won us the round. And yeah,
wow.
That was the deciding moment. And then the man with the 4-foot beard, everyone knows him as Ricky Fisher. He was our Gits player. And then at the bottom, not looking at the camera and posing for something approximately 45 degrees offset, is Matthias, who is playing Slaves to Darkness.
Yeah, now Alex, Carson was playing Ogres. He was playing a very similar list to what he would normally play at GT, except with less interesting pieces and more buttons. And I was playing an okay Ruse and Foxes version that was actually ended up being less skewed than the other versions brought by most teams. It ended up being a little too much of a GT list, but it was, I would say, like it was 3 Foxes, 15 Ruse, Callus, and Toll, and so there's a little more all Foxes.
Are you saying that when you said it's too much of a GT list, do you mean it's too much of an take all comers list and it wasn't skewed enough? Right. Yeah. Because this is a team's event. So you're trying to skew into good matchups for yourself. Right.
Right. And so it was fine. It was totally fine. But like seeing some of the other sort of Fox skew lists that work in a team's environment, there were some other interesting options that I sort of like learned about there. But I mean, some of them I knew about beforehand, but I had just gotten a lot of reps with this one, and so you sort of get comfortable with the thing. And actually, this is a weird tangent, but Tom played Foxes, and I played Foxes. And Tom's Foxes, if you look at it, is very, very different than my Foxes, and how we played it was very different because he played Foxes as an attacker, like a go big, find the skew, and I played Foxes as a defender. And so we would play. A couple, like we had people who were playing against us that had just incredibly different experiences because I played Foxes to like make sure no matter what I'm hitting that 8 to 12, and Tom was playing Foxes to like search for the 20.
Wow.
To like preparing to search for the 20, and so even within what seems like one list, relatively small changes really can alter its role in a composition.
Sorry, I just love in the chat as you were talking, Michael tunes in and just goes like, I eat foxes. Nom nom. Yeah, it's true. And for anyone that doesn't know, anytime Matt's saying like 12-8 or 20-0 or something like that, at teams, you're always going to be using a differential system, which means you take the actual battle points of the 2 players. And then usually it's like stepping up by, 3 or 4 victory points. I believe at this tournament it was 4. Every 4 victory points was 1 point differential. So if let's say there's 8 points in victory score difference, then that would be 2 increments of 4. So then that would be a 12-8 because up by 2, down by 2. So yeah, that's just what that means. So, and then basically the entire team's scores collectively get added up together. And if it's larger than the other team's scores, then you win the round. And
yeah.
But Jeremy Cooper is asking, what does an attacker defender mean? So how teams format works, and if you haven't done it, you should do it. It's the best way to play Warhammer. I love playing teams because everything you do matters. Once you've won or lost the game, everything you do still matters. The margin matters because it affects whether or not your team wins. You don't know how the rest of the team's doing. It makes very, very fun games. How teams works is you will put out a map, and each team will choose a player to defend on that map. And then the opposing team will put out 2 attackers, which is lists they think will do well against that defender on that map. And then each of the defenders will choose an attacker and send back the other that goes back into the pool. And that will create the first 2 pairs. And so the defender is usually the kind of list that's like something that is designed to, you know, be able to make sure that it's not losing big, be able to sort of control how it plays, and usually something that wants to be on the map that it's defending. So, for example, Chris Lemoyne was our main wide map defender. He's playing a really distributed Soulblight list that's sort of waves of undead that comes back at different points. And so against basically anyone on a really big map with lots of objectives, he's never going to lose big, and never did lose big, because he's just so good at recurring in different spots on a wide map. And so then as the opponent, you're like, all right, cool. What are the two lists I think can best beat this Soulblight list that's optimized for defending this wide map that it's now defending? So each team does that in parallel, and they send back the opponents, and they repeat that process until all of the pairings have been set.
Yeah, and thanks for people asking. I was trying to like keep on top of you know, and I hope I was being helpful for like, you know, explaining and getting people to explain like what certain things mean. But yeah, if you guys have any more questions, please throw them in the chat there. So yeah, so like then, so you guys figured out your. By the way, how much of like when you were forming like, so like Matthias originally picked Daughters of Cain, for example, and Daughters of Cain are like, I'm not saying like I'm putting any stock in like stats or whatnot, but they haven't been doing very well in stats. So like they're generally considered to be not as strong an army. How much of that do you guys take into account, like the meta and you know, that sort of thing?
That's a good question. I would say that not to like pitch another show, but I think it's actually really a good way to think about it, is if you watched, so the Honest Wargamer just did a tier list. And if you watch that list, one of the things he comments on a lot is about the difference in the player pool when you look at an army's win rate, and why the player pool is what it is at that point in time. And the difference between, say, Slaves to Darkness with a very large player pool at a high win rate versus an army that's complex to play with a very small player pool at a high win rate. And I think that the overall win rate in the meta informs how you think about the power level of a book, but is overly simplistic because the raw win rate does not take into account the dynamics of why people are playing what when they are in sort of the mass they are. And a really great example of that is Beast of Chaos, which has a relatively low play rate right now, and I don't think is doing particularly bonkers in the meta, but was taken by a lot of teams because people are moving away from it because the book's going out. Yeah. I just sold my Beast of Chaos. And I happen to sell, as part of that, a ton of Vestigor, which actually, if you spam a ton of Vestigor right now, it's really good.
We noticed that in the list review show.
And so the sort of default like aggregate meta win rate is not always telling. It also could be because some armies are harder to play than others. And I think Doc is one of those where like,
yeah,
Morathi is, I would say, has a pretty high ceiling if used really correctly, and is very, very hard to use correctly. And so there's some sort of high ceiling armies that I think their aggregate win rate is not in line with their potential. I think if we had any of those in the ending comp.
Another thing to keep in mind too is like with Daughters of Cain specifically, it is less of a forgiving army in that it is a glass cannon, right?
Yep,
it's kind of got the same problem Ogres does actually, where it's just like you probably have a lot of bodies, you have a lot of output, but unlike Slaves, you won't be able to take a punch if something does manage to get into you in one of those freak scenarios.
Right.
So you can't really account for that as well. And I think in a team's comp, like that's not really, we don't want to have too many armies that are like that, because we did already have Ogres. But
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like you had slaves, which is not one of those armies. You had Gits, trolls, not one of those armies. Night Haunt, not one of those armies. Soulblight, not one of those armies. You can make the argument for Stormcast. I mean, if you look at like their numbers, that it kind of speaks for itself to a certain extent because they certainly have strong options. Although I don't know, are they a hard army to play?
Stormcast. We were one of the only teams to bring Stormcast.
Really?
But like, I don't think it was a. I think that Stormcast is quite a strong book, has a decent win rate. I think that Beast is a better example of that dynamic. We didn't really have an example of that dynamic where like the overall meta win rate is not necessarily aligned to the power level. And when you get a big teams event, you will see that pretty clearly. I think at Worlds, Slaanesh was a good example last year. Yeah, and it's kind of a miss from on the US side. Like there were a lot of European teams running almost exactly the same Slaanesh build, and Nurgle actually as well. And neither of those have particularly high win rates in the meta at the time, but they had certain particular builds that were quite good when played a certain way.
I see.
And also because they were sort of skew builds, they would be less appealing to play in a GT because while they're quite powerful, you could just sort of lose in the pairings.
That was like do you remember the Goutfire Scorch in AOS 1?
I know the name, but
it's the one that would pop up out of the ground using the warp grinders, and then all the Storm Fiends and warp fire throwers just did mortal wounds. Yeah. So like it like basically never won a GT because it's such a skew build that like it would just auto lose to Daughters of Cain at the time and like certain other like Horde armies. But like if you went into like Sylvaneth or Stormcast, it was a joke. It was like basically it was almost impossible to win. I never played it. Like obviously I don't play in tournaments, but like I only ever played it for friends who are getting ready for a tournament and they might encounter it, you know, because the first game would be over in like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And then the second game, you know, even against Stormcast, it would go a lot further. So it was important to get experience against it. That's interesting though. So like you guys were so sort of focused then more on like skew builds where possible. You obviously didn't have as much of one, but like in a way, kind of like it's very mobile. I think your army is or Lumineth, the Fox build is an example of like one of those armies like Daughters of Cain, right? That's although they're doing quite well in the meta too. Never mind. Maybe
Fox is pretty good in the meta. I mean, one of the things that also really benefit our team is we happen to have players whose main army. Lumineth is not my main army, but for the most part, the majority of our team were playing the army that was their primary army. That
Ricky, Carson, that's
Michael. Chris is not his only army; is one of his primary armies.
Wow.
Jeremy, Stormcast is not the army he's played most recently, but he's played it a lot. Matthias, Slaves is not his primary army, but he's also played it a lot. Actually, I think the only person who played an army they haven't played a ton. I haven't played a lot of Lumina, but for the most part, we did index on army knowledge pretty heavily. I think that was good. We had a couple questions. What was Jeremy's role? Did you attack with him or defend? He was flex. A lot of what Jeremy's role ended up being was being available. We haven't talked a ton about like pairings prep, which I don't know how much detail we want to go into. I will say the other thing where we did more prep than anyone else was in sample pairings against the other team to figure out what dynamics worked.
That's a great idea.
And we did a lot of that. And a lot of the time, Jeremy's role was to be available to prevent certain options or make certain options bad for other teams early in the pairing process, and then end up defending later on in the process. So like he's sort of held in hand to like block them from doing stuff and then put as a defender sort of later half.
And Jeremy was which player again, just for the people in the chat?
He was playing Stormcast. And so Ricky says, we try to defend with Jeremy on spread maps with 4 forests. Well, what that means, So we would sort of have Jeremy available as an attacker so that they couldn't put down foxes as a defender early. And then he could defend when he could guarantee 4 forests because especially into 4 forests, foxes are really bad attacking him, right? So there's different uses that way. So he was definitely a flex. And then a couple other questions. How many members of Team Canada and Team US were at Masters?
Yeah.
So from last year's US team, you had me on PNW, Gavin and Tom were on the South. Anthony Trentinelli was on the Northeast. Noah was on the Southeast. And then the remaining 3 couldn't make it because of various reasons. And all of them were sort of like, I think, unavailable for the event. And then Canada, I think there's about a 50% overlap between the Canadian team. Matthias came on our team.
Yeah.
And then I think there's about half of Canada.
Yeah, Zero had Jake Seguin. They had Fred as well, who was a part of Team Canada. Both Ridge and Jordan, I think, have been on Team Canada in the past, but not last year's team. And then Devin was not. He hasn't been on the team. I'm just trying to think of who else was on that team. I think that's it. Yuri?
James O'Brien.
Oh yeah, James O'Brien was on.
He played on the
Mid-Atlantic.
He's part of Team Canada.
He was a mercenary for Team Canada last year.
Yeah. The other one of the head judges of Worlds, Madigan, was the captain of the Northeast team. So I would say 60-70% of the people that went from North America to Worlds for the team's event were in here in some way.
Okay.
And there were also former members of the US team, actually quite a lot of them. Because the US team rotates and it shifts. So like round 1, I played Sam Gould, who was a US team player in 2019 at the first AOS Worlds. So yeah, there was also a significant representation of former US team players.
Dang. By the way, the picture that Carson was talking about is now on the screen, where Matthias's hand is in front of his face. Matthias set that to his like Discord picture, and I keep thinking it's Carson saying stuff. I have to actually read the name. It's super annoying. Chris says, thanks for the answer, Matt.
Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah. By the way, what are the spearhead boxes in the background here?
They were given away for random things. They weren't given away as prizes to like the first, second, third teams, but I think it was stuff like a couple that I remember was that Fred from the Canada team got one because he was like the top scoring 0 and 4 player. So like the top scoring whipping boy, effectively.
Oh man,
who got paired into the bad stuff, but still scored really well. And then one of them was for the team that came from the furthest place, which was San Diego by like.
Which was wrong. I was sitting there with Google Maps. It was like for the furthest place. San Diego is not as far as Vancouver from Boston. It's like 50 minutes.
We did the same calculation and we saw that it was further. On the plane.
Did you do it as the crow flies or you did it on a plane?
We did it as the crow flies.
I see. I did it road time.
Road time. Okay, sure, fair.
Oh.
Fair.
We didn't actually drive, we flew, so your way is probably more fair.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, if anyone that's that was part of the Southwest team is in the chat and knows how long the flight was from San Diego, please let us know. Because I know that from Vancouver, it was like a 5-hour flight from Vancouver to Ottawa, and then an 1.5-hour flight from Ottawa to Boston, and not including any layovers. You're in the air for 6.5 hours. So, right. And there are no direct flights from YVR to Boston. It just doesn't exist.
I think you might have it. I think you guys might.
So my address for shipping is.
Oh, by the way, because I keep forgetting to bring this up, and so I think it's very important. I think we need to talk about the elephant in the room. There is an element to your guys' team that, like, you really needed to do better. I think you know what I'm talking about. What? You two don't know what I'm talking about. Are you serious?
No.
The names of your lists.
Oh.
The names of your list. You guys, like, Team Ulgu had your ass. No, but I mean, as a team, this isn't a singles event, Carson. This is a team's event.
I have a list name format I'm going to start using.
Okay. Now we're talking. So you're going to do better next time. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
okay.
I have a list name format. I've written it down, and it's something like, "Dear Sir or Madam, to whom it may concern, my commitment to you."
Nice, I like it. What was I going to say? So basically, you guys for the next year are going to like improve upon your naming convention, strategy. Just like everyone else is probably going to like work harder to actually play the game better. Right?
Yeah. What I want it to be is that we're going to have list names that are like single words or like phrases, where if you pair us in the correct order, it puts together a key phrase that unlocks our luggage.
Nice. don't do what?
Yeah. Here it is. I wrote it down. Dear Sir, I hope this missive finds you well. Please find and close my Skaven list.
That's good.
It's very pleasant. I like that.
Yeah. Nice. It's got like an old world charm to it, And
you're like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Interesting. As you go and read the list.
I've got a name for my list that I'm going to use on Thursday. By the way, we are doing a live battle report on Thursday. It's going to be Skaven versus Blades of Corn. I'm going to be like skewing into Mulder because it's like all I can use in a battle report is what I have painted. And there's not a lot that's like the meta's changed wildly. And things like that used to be pretty good in AOS 3, like Warp Lightning Cannons are pretty bad now. But anyway, so yeah, it's going to be a fun battle report. Hope you guys can tune in for Thursday. Yeah. Okay.
I like what Ludovica said, where it's you use the same list name as this year, but with parentheses 2024 champ.
Oh,
after it. Just like
you could do that even if you weren't playing something. So like I could be playing Zine, so the name is Fox's 2024 champ.
That's true. That's true. It kind of reminds me of Stark, where he was the Pacific Northwest Master winner of, I think, 2022.
2020, yes.
And then he had PNW Master in parentheses on the PNW Discord. And then he didn't get it this year, so I think it's like Stark of former greatness. Is what his,
that's still pretty good.
On Discord.
That's still pretty darn good. So just to get my weekly fighting game reference in, there is a player called Xiaohai, and he's like an Evo champ. Evo's the biggest fighting game tournament in the world by far. Like for Street Fighter this last year, I think they had 6,000 or 7,000 entrants over a 3-day tournament, right? It's crazy. So what they used to do, and they do this again still, is they get arcade sticks, like controllers, the big fighting game controllers, and they get them painted totally gold, right? And they give them away to the top players, right? And if you get first place, you get a gold one, second silver, etc., right? And so now he uses that trophy as his arcade stick. He plays on it. So when you square up against this guy, he's rocking the hardest tournament, the biggest tournament in fighting games in the world. Actually, I think it's the biggest. So I'm just saying, guys, these are strategies you can employ yourself, right?
That's actually, we have had that thought. Ricky and I have between us at least 3, if not 4, of the pillar painting trophies or overall trophies from the Games Workshop Opens.
Nice.
And they are very cool terrain pieces.
They are. They're dope.
The Sparkle Party at some point is going to have some very nice places of power.
Hell yeah.
Places of power.
Hope they don't steal them.
You should have like one flex table where the mat is a Dimensional Cascade or Sparkle Party, like best overall or best general mat. And then all the terrain pieces are just like awards from different tournaments. And that's like the top table.
Now you guys, you're getting what I'm saying now. Exactly. Like this is, it's not just a flex. It's like, you got to start the mental warfare early and well, right? Yeah.
So let's see. So we talked about team selection. We talked about practice. We didn't actually like formally say it, but like, so we won the event. We could talk through the individual rounds.
I definitely want to hear that, but real quick, okay. I have to highlight Bear says, I got a new magic heavy Seraphon list. Frogworts. You're a lizardary. That's so good. Like, this is what I'm talking about. And yes, I did sneak in a Street Fighter. I got to. It's in the bylaws of the channel. Okay, moving right along into the matchups. Round 1, who were you playing against?
Yeah, round 1 we played the Northeast. So let's see. You can go.
I've kind of a funny story about this matchup where like so we knew that we were going to be playing Northeast for a while because they revealed the round 1 pairings, I think a week before the tournament started. So we kind of got to see like what the lists were and kind of how we were going to do into it. And I know, Matt, you did a lot of preparation on the plane, and we chatted about it a little bit. And then prior to the round, I know there was some mock pairings and whatnot. But as we were playing this round, so we all kind of start going through, I think Matt is like the last game, and you can't know like no one's allowed to tell you what the scores were in the other matches. So you're kind of playing blind. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can tell me.
I could, but I didn't. So I was like, that's another thing actually, is that Matt was like, Carson's the coach for the event because Jeremy Cooper couldn't make it. So I was the one that was like, I guess it's because my games probably ended earlier than most people just because I was playing ogres. I don't know if that's why you said that. Or
I'm just trying to get you to take over variants.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair. I didn't pick that up at all, actually. No. Yeah, I definitely didn't pick up that vibe from you. But so Matt's game was the last game that was being played, and I think it was a pretty close match from what I recall. Like, it was a relatively close victory, I think, you guys.
Yeah, it was, ended up being 13-7 to me.
Okay, that's a pretty significant victory. But you got out of that match, and I know I could see like a sense of stress and worry on your face as I like walked up to you. You're like, "How we do?" And I was just like, "We almost clean sweep them." Like we won 7 out of 8 games against Northeast, and he's just the sense of relief and like laughter on your face that came immediately afterwards was priceless. I wish I could like capture that moment in a bottle. It was great.
The only thing I knew about the rest of the round, because I was so concentrated on this like Zinch versus Foxes game, was about 20 minutes into the round, the one table I could hear was Alex playing Basil to the left of me. And Alex goes, "Yeah, that is a 16-inch charge." And then I see like Vanguard moving in 16 inches, and I'm like, "Oh, look away, focus." Wow. That was all I knew about the round at the time.
Wow. 16. Yep. That is something. Shoot. Wow.
Yep. Those hot 3d6 charges are pretty good. No I know that I played against Dylan. I'm not going to mess up his last name. Okay, it's Terriel. I think this is how you pronounce his last name. I asked him this, and he said he's going to unsubscribe if I get it wrong again. So, yep. But that was good. A good game. He was playing cities, like pretty standard, like shooting, hammers, executioners kind of mixed list. And yeah, it kind of worked out like that you made me coach for the weekend, because I did actually finish my game, I think, first almost every round against every opponent I had. So I was able to kind of walk around and see how things were going and chat with people. Yeah, that was neat. It was lucky that was the case. And then I think Matthias played against Gitz. I think Jeremy played against Nighthaunt, actually. Madigan.
Yeah, so Matthias played against Anthony Trentinelli from the U.S. Worlds team. Very famous player from the Northeast, playing Gitz. And he got the win. I guess we could just say instead of got the win, that the one loss was Ricky, who played Anthony Lawrence, who's an incredible Northeast player, and playing Soul White. And Ricky still got 9 points, and so our one loss in the round was a 9.
Wow, dang, that's amazing. Originally, I thought
Yeah,
you kind
this
of threw under the
Northeast
bus.
team, it's a list of names. And so we, going in, we were like, man, this is going to be a rough round. So if you look at this, Alex beat Basil, Inferno, I think another big Northeast player most players have heard of. I played Sam Gould, former U.S. team player. Chris Lemoy played Owen Jackson, who played for Team Wales. He got him 14-6 against Piece of Chaos. Michael Toons played Roger Barker, who is another former U.S. team player. And then Anthony Lawrence, Ricky played Anthony Lawrence. Matthias played Anthony Trednelli. Jeremy Lemoy played Madigan Mason, 11-9 against Nighthawk, super solid. And then Carson played Dylan. So this was like, almost a clean sweep. Doesn't tell you like all these are round 5 GT games. All of these players are like 4-1-5-0 every event kind of players.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like my opponent Dylan was at the US Open Tacoma, and I think he placed higher than both of us.
I think so.
That event.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, you go to a tournament like this, every game is going to be a game 5 of a GT. It's unavoidable because every single region is just like hand-picked all of the people that do that and then sent them off to this team's event. So it only makes sense. But yeah, that rounded up, I think we were like 107 to that was our score, I think. Let me pull it up here.
While you're doing that, someone said, or Devin Cortman said, because of like, the gold joystick thing that I was talking about, he said, gold 3-inch gauges for you guys is what I'm hearing. I like that. I like that idea. If you can get someone to print them up, I'll paint them for you guys and varnish the heck out of them. And yeah, let's make it happen.
So
Go ahead.
So the team PNW versus the Northeast, it was 104 to 56 is what we scored, which is quite high actually.
Yeah.
And I think, like Devin said in the chat, that's a good indication that you kind of won pairings at that point, where everyone got like preferential matchups that they were pretty happy with.
We did. I think. I think that one of the big things that mattered for our success was, you have a lot of good players playing against each other with a lot of strong lists, and I think we did win the pairings all 4 rounds.
Nice.
I think so too. It was especially apparent in the last round, which we'll get to, but yeah.
Absolutely.
So what do you think?
Well, before hey Dan, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. Dan said, I just got here, but hell yeah, get some PNW War Dolly Warriors. Absolutely. I've been kind of cycling through the pictures slowly. Is this picture this picture was before you guys won, right? That's on screen right now.
The team picture, I think so. That was the one where we're between the tables.
Yeah.
I don't remember when that one was taken.
Oh, okay, fair enough. I just thought a little context would be cool before we move on, but yeah, cool.
No, sorry, no memory.
No worries.
All just a blur. And then round 2, we played against Canada. Azir.
Good. Team Canada.
Yeah, the battle for British Columbia, as we alluded to earlier.
Yeah.
And that one, that round kind of made me sweat. Like, I think it was because we came out of like a really big win first round. Going into that round, the difference ended up only being 84 to 76 was the final score, which is really, really close. So that's an 8-point differential, or I guess 32-point total victory, or total victory points different
for the whole 8 members of the team.
Yeah, exactly.
8 points. And that's why this is what makes teams the best format. So like if you're losing at GT and you've lost the game, sure, you depending on who you are, you may scoop, you may blame the dice, you may rage quit, you may start drinking, you may sort of soldier it out to learn what you can. Every single one of these games, until they bottom around 5, your job is to soldier it out to get every point you can, and every single one of those things matters, and they're all worth playing for, which makes the full length of every game deeply engaging.
Yeah. An example of that is, so I played against Devin Cortman, who is on Team Azir, who was playing Soulblight Gravelords, and that was actually a green matchup as far as we were concerned, where like ogres going into that can kind of have the power output to just punch anything that locks you in combat. and for the most part, like trade pretty well with their hammers and outpace them. But I got too greedy effectively in that matchup. And about halfway through, I was like, I'm not going to win this one. So I have to scrape as many points as I possibly can. And I distinctly remember one moment where I had a Stonehorn that was like right outside of like charge range of a unit of Graveguard that he could have just picked up. And I was like, that would be fun. But standing on these points over here and getting this take their land tactic and just ignoring that unit with the Stonehorn is going to get me a 10-point turn. And that's going to make this matchup much, much closer. So that when he does table me in round, I think the end of 4 or something like that, when he eventually like scores up the rest of the game, it's only going to be like a 12-8 or 11-9, which is what it ended up being. So
it was an 11-9?
It was a 12-8, which is still not great. I was hoping to win that one, but I tried to keep it as close as possible. And shout out to you, Devin. Great game. Well played.
And so just for the round, say Chris Demoy played Jake Sigwin, who's playing Cities. Chris won 12-8. Jeremy Lemoy played Jordan Duncan, playing OBR. Jeremy lost 8-12. Matthias played Ridge, playing Gitz, and Matthias won 14-6, which will be a recurrent pattern of Matthias against Gitz. Ricky was playing Frederick Burgas, who's playing Feck and won 13-7. Michael lost 9-11 to Yuri playing Nighthaunt. We talked about Carson. I played the Mirror. I played Michael Sabetti in the Fox Mirror and won 11-9. And Alex played Dom Ellison playing Slaves and lost 9-11. So you can see these are just a lot of very tight games. I mean, the only games that were more than a 2-point game were Matthias winning 14-6 and Ricky winning 13-7. And everything else was an 11-9 or 12-8.
That's so awesome.
And that one, it was interesting. We won pairings for the most part, but not as we did. We didn't do as well as we thought because we walked away with a lot of what felt like greens. The only red was me and the Mirror, and the reason it was red is because, for 2 reasons. One, this is actually a really fascinating game, and I talked about it with Michael a lot afterwards because it was such an interesting learning experience. We have it as red because Callus and Toll are really, really bad into Ruse because Ruse ignore ward saves. And so Callus and Toll are not good in the Mirror. The other reason is because Callus and Toll make you a 3-drop, which means your opponent in the Mirror will always choose who goes first.
Ah, right.
And what ended up being my out was that there was no option for Michael except to put a board that had 4 forests out because all of the potential boards for the map had 4 forests. And he made me go first, which is the traditional thing to do in a sort of this kind of a match. Because both of us had such low non-shooting output, I was able to take my 2 units of Ruse and move them into both of the mid-board forests. And then everything else was sort of out of 40 inches of him. And so I had things in threat positions that he had no effective way of dealing damage to. And everything else was just off in corners of the board. And so the weird sort of dynamics of because we were both so shockingly low melee damage as lists, just the forest positioning and be able to hide in them was really determinant. And so that allowed me to get 11-9 in what was otherwise a really bad match. I actually put Callus and Toll one of the forest with 5 rows too, right next to a point. They just deep striked into the forest off the point and sat there for 3 turns because they couldn't get, there's nothing to melee them and they couldn't get shot. And then they eventually walked out on the point late in the game. So it's a really weird, unique dynamic. It's very cool. And so we talked about it afterwards. I think if neither of us had played the Mirror. I hadn't played it. Literally, like I was going to play a Mirror against John, and I was like, "It's fine. We don't need to do this. I know it's a red. I'm never going to give myself a Mirror. I don't need to make you go through that. It'll be fine." And ended up doing it because it got other people greens. Yeah, so it's a purposeful choice. We picked to get me the red because it got other greens.
I see. But when you're marking things red versus green, you're doing it ahead of time. So
yeah, so you make a matrix. So to finish the story, so Michael and I talked through it. If both of us had played the thing before with the same list, doing it again, he would have taken top of one, and then it should have. I mean, it's always dice game, right? But should have won because of the list advantage. And we just didn't think through the dynamics of that, because when he took top, or when he gave away top of one, I also thought it was the right choice. So when you make a matrix where you're like, here's your opponent's team and here's your team, and then every single one of them you're trying to red, yellow, green and get an expected outcome for that game. And then when you do your pairings, you're constantly referencing the matrix and trying to figure out, okay, well, if these people are out, what's left? Okay, now these people are out, what's left? All right, well, if I gotten myself trapped in the result where I'll have reds at the end, or can I trap them in the result where they'll have reds at the end, based on who I'm pulling out of the process through who I'm attacking, or who I'm defending with, and who I'm pulling as an attacker.
Because it's not based on your army, it's based on your list, and your list, that makes sense when you say that.
It has to be based on the combination of the list and the map. So like there'll be times where it's like, I'm green, like there will literally, so as foxes, actually, it's really extreme. So say foxes versus something like trogs could be deeply red on
a dense map,
50 objectives, and it could be totally green on, scorched earth, right? Which is the 8 objective map.
Right.
And so in a GT, that's just like, man, these skew maps are really frustrating when I'm playing a list that's really good at one thing and really bad at others. And it's sort of a reason that I often tend to play lists that are a little more agnostic, because you don't want those kinds of results. In a team format, it's actually great to have those dynamics be sort of part of the pairing process interaction, rather than just feel like a dice roll at the table from a GT pairing.
Right. Alex asked a really good question in the chat. First of all, he said, I love the photos, Alex Butler, from the event. We've got you on the stream right now, and it looks like you lied about what you played, because there's like a bunch of Zeech models in the photo, but those are the opposing. Well, I mean, it's like, I see like a Lord of Change, and
that would have been round 1, I guess, then. Right?
Oh, I played against Zeech round 1.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying it looks like you're a liar that you were actually playing Zeech, because that is, that's what I know you from the most. But Alex asked earlier, who got the most unexpected wins from red matches? That's an interesting question. I don't.
Well, that was an unexpected win
for sure. Yeah.
I think Michael Toons got a really unexpected red win.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. Where like I can think of 3 pairings. I actually don't even remember what his 4th one was, but he went into Foxes 2 times. Where again, we thought that was like a really red matchup. One of them.
The first time and a bad yellow the second time.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Go ahead. Sorry.
And then he went into Jeremy Lefebvre's like really weird, really skewy anti-melee list, and we're like, you're gonna lose. Sorry, buddy. It's gonna be a loss, because the whole list is designed to give you like -3 attacks whenever you go into it, and Morghasts only have 3 attacks each, right? Or 4 attacks.
3. And it's like 3 big attacks. Now he's gonna have 1.
They're like high quality attacks. Yeah, that makes sense. And then
And then he didn't win that game, but he managed to pull it into a 9-11 loss, which is like incredible. And I think
as good as it gets.
He was very close to winning that game too. I think it was a 1-point game between them. And Jeremy Lefebvre is obviously a legendary player, very good at the game. Like he won LVO most recently. Was he on Team USA or no? Okay, but anyway, just knocked over my hammer. He's a very good player. And the fact that Michael Toons was able to go into a match against a very good player in a list that he should have like got stomped by, and pull out that close of a game, it was, he's my hero of the event, I think.
Amazing.
I will say, let's see, I'm trying to find our round 3 pairings.
While you're looking for that, Chris says, listening to Matt talk about this is awesome. Playing chess as opposed to checkers. And then Bear says right below him, listening to this and realized I'm playing tic-tac-toe. You guys are being funny in the chat. I like it.
So I will say in the first 2 rounds, we because again, we won pairings for the most part. We only had 1 red in each round, which was Michael, and we won both of those. We had no reds in round 4. And so I'm just looking really quick if we had reds round 3 and what happened to them. Michael into Jeremy, the one you just talked through.
Yeah, right. And probably yours, right?
Yeah,
Vice?
yeah.
That was a red for sure.
That was a red, and it
What was it?
exactly as expected. So my round 3 was me into Trogs on the Vice. Certain ruse lists are quite good in the Trogs because they, the ward saves. The Foxes are not as good, and mine was Fox heavier and Rue light. But the real dynamic was the map. As we talked about, certain matchups can flip their color based on the map. And the Vice, the turn 4 and 5 scoring conditions depend on sitting in the center of the board. There's only 1 point active.
Right.
And so unless you table Trogs, you will probably not score the primary on those turns. And so we had an extremely interesting, complex game with a lot of jockeying for tactics, but the end score was exactly what we would have thought it could be. I did not successfully sort of break the expectation, which was we were tied precisely going into battle round 4. He got 4 more points than me in 4 and 4 more points than me in 5 because I didn't let him be uncontested on that objective, but I could not take it from him. And so I lost the game by 8 points, which is exactly sort of the mean expected result for that matchup.
Dang.
So we did lose that red. And that's 9 times out of 10, that's what should happen in that match if both players are playing it right.
Yeah. And then we lost the other red, Michael Toons' game, as we said. But again, it was really close. It was a 9-11 loss. It was Toons really pulling it out, which was awesome. And that round was kind of dissimilar to the rest of them, I think, where every game otherwise was a really high scoring game.
Very big differences, yeah.
Yeah. So you had when I finished my game 17-3 against Beast of Chaos. And then in the opposite direction, we had Christopher Schelling beat Jeremy Lemoy Night Haunt against Stormcast 17-3. So that was basically just a trade. So it's just a net 0 at that point. And that kept happening to the point where we had 2 tables left at the end, where it was, I think we were exactly tied because 6 of the 8 tables had already reported scores, and it was an exact tie between the 2 teams. And it was Matt's table and Chris Lemoy's table. We knew that Matt was going to lose because that was an expected red pairing, and we're kind of not sure what was going to happen with the Daughters of Cain pairing. We assumed
had it as green though.
Yeah, we did have it as green conceptually, but I think that it wasn't quite as much of a practice pairing as some of the other games that went on. And it was basically can Chris Lemoy win bigger than their Gits player? And the answer was yes. So we ended up taking the round. And that was an even closer one. It was 82-78, only 4 points difference. Yeah.
Wow.
So
that was a nail biter for sure. But
sorry,
I think
which team was that again?
That was Texas. That was
Texas.
The favorite. So Texas was the favorite to win going into the event.
Yeah, and Texas did the best other than you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Team Aquashy. I've got it on.
Yeah, so they had some very strong players, Gavin and Tom, Jeremy Lefebvre all on that team, as well as some very well-known Texas players. I've played Chris Schelling before and Matt Robich, both sort of at the end of GTs. I know Chris West from sort of similar games. So, yeah, very, very strong team. So let's see. So Michael Toons got a 9-11 against Jeremy. Alex, Night Haunt into Soul Blight. This was a good one because one of the things, it does matter how familiar you are with an army. And so Alex into Soul Blight is a good match for Night Haunt into Soul Blight, not just because Night Haunt is pretty good in the Soul Blight, but because Alex also plays Soul Blight. And so you get to play the army against another army that's good knowledge. And then we had Chris into Daughters 14-6, Carson into James 17-3. Now that one we had never played before, and Carson and I agreed ahead of time. It seems like it should be agreed, but well done, Carson, on executing on that.
17-3. Sorry, it was ogres into what?
In the Beast
of Chaos.
That
was 80
God.
basically.
Wow.
I I'll fully admit that things definitely went my way dice wise. I won. So he outdropped me, so he made me go first. But turn 1, Stormcast gets his run. The Stonehorn gets his run and charge prayer off. I get the Stonehorn and 12 Gluttons into him, and I kill the Herd Stone and like most of the unit of Bestigor. And then he comes in with his Bestigor. I redeploy far enough away. He doesn't win Prio, so I just go eat another unit of Bestigor. The Iron Guts themselves killed like 50 Bestigor that game.
Wow.
And it was just one by one happening, and he just couldn't win the right Prios and couldn't get into me in a preferential way. So it definitely went my way for sure. I won't claim that it wasn't partially luck, but yeah, we take it.
And then Jeremy off to Chris Schelling. I will say that Chris Schelling wins the award for the most DGen list of the event.
Yeah, which was
would be pleased with that prize. 45 hex race.
Oh,
so that,
man.
Yeah, so we had Jeremy as sort of a bad yellow into Night Hunt, but like the wound density and speed of 45 hex race was Chris Schelling did not lose a game with those 45 hex race, and
really
I think that list showed me the Night Hunt did not get nerfed enough, but we'll see.
I do not think, I totally agree with you. Like, I don't know who would even argue that they did, really.
Well,
unless you're
I think the change, I mean, it's a big change to like the core mechanic.
That's true. But most armies already were there. Like, most armies don't have as good a thing as they even have now. Like, actually, whatever. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, different show.
Yeah.
And then Matthias played Tom Guan. He lost 4-16, but we knew this was a coin flip when we paired it. We had a lot of relatively bad matches into Tom. Matthias is playing Bridge Berengard, and it really was a like, can he resolve the 3-6 charge on the bridge and just eat part of Tom's army or not? And so we knew it was a coin flip, and the coin flip didn't go our way, and that's okay. That happens. I played Ryan Rutherford Gitz, very good game, great player. We talked about that. And then Ricky Fisher, the hobbyist. Fluffy bunny unicorn onesie hobbyist. Beat Gavin Grigar on the Vice with Gitz and Zizich.
Yeah.
Damn.
And I heard what happened was like, I was gonna say, from what I heard, what happened was Gavin goes in to like a unit of 6 Trogs with I think 20 Zangor or something like that, or basically like he goes in with something that was supposed to be able to deal damage, kills like a Trog, and then just bounces, and then goes all the way back to the corners of the table and just like kind of sits there for a little bit, and then eventually scoops and says like, this is how this is going to play out. These battle tactics are going to happen. It's going to be a 12-8 good game, and just like calls it early against Ricky, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
And it was basically the same dynamic as in my Vice game against Trogs, except Kevin was just like, here's exactly how these things will go. And then we're good. And I instead was like, all right, I know exactly how these things are going to go, but I'm going to spend the next hour and a half torturing myself to try to get them to not go this way. They went that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ricky the hobbyist got the win against Captain America.
Yep.
Warpstone says average. Yeah. Yeah. Average, or Warpstone Enjoyer says average Trogs experience. Like, that's definitely was my Trog experience. I've not even killed a single Trog at times. Right on. Okay. And then I guess it's just the last round. Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point it was interesting because like, the South was the favorite, and we knew that going in. And so when we won this round, it was weird because at the end of the round, they had more points than us because we had a very tight round 2, and they had a blowout round 2. Not a blowout, but like a big win round 2. And so they were going in up on points, but we were 3-0. And the first result for the event, the first thing that mattered was record, and the second thing that mattered was points. And that meant going to the last round, if we won the round, we won the event. Right. But if we lost by 1 point, 79-81, we were going to lose to the South because as long as they won their round, they were going to be ahead of us on points. I mean, they could actually lose their round and be ahead of us on points. And No, but then it would have been 2-2. But like,
yeah, we'd been a 3-1. It would have been okay.
yeah, then we'd be only 3-1. But like we had to win the round. It was like 81 points, guys. 81 points. Have to get it done. You don't win the round, lose the event. And so we ended up playing against the Mid-Atlantic team. And actually, when I started playing Warhammer, this is the region that I played in, was the Mid-Atlantic. And some of the players from the Mid-Atlantic team this year are some of the first people I played Warhammer with. Scooter Walters, I think, was the first Warhammer TO I ever met. And Scooter played, I think did he play Matthias? Who did he play? Scooter's playing Darkness. Go ahead.
Would that be like the Massachusetts area?
No. Hey, let me answer this.
What's Mid-Atlantic?
Yeah. Scooter played Alex Gonzalez played Nighthawk. The Mid-Atlantic is the
like Carolina,
south of like New York, but north of
Georgia.
North of Georgia. Yeah, so it's for this, and how I think of it in my head is North Carolina, Maryland.
Oh,
DC.
right.
Yeah. It's basically go to the like metro area of DC and sort of expand out.
That makes sense. Right on.
And I started playing Warhammer there, and so these are people who play literally in the stores where I first started playing.
Are you from there?
No, I'm from Portland, but I didn't play Warhammer in Portland.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So really fun round. We did end up taking it, and it was. I'm looking at the results.
That was a round that was like, I remember we did our typical 1 hour before doing like practice pairings and stuff like that, and it seemed like it was going to actually be a pretty tricky round to pair. It didn't seem like it was going to be particularly easy going in because there was a lot of weird cornering situations that were happening, and we weren't sure how it was going to turn out, and it kind of worried us a little bit. And then when we actually went into pairing and actually did pairing against, I think it was James O'Brien and Fabian with the two.
James O'Brien, Fabian, and I think Mike.
Right. Yeah, that's right. We came out of that round's pairing, and as Matt said before, there were no reds.
There were no reds. A lot of greens. And
a lot of greens, yeah.
Yeah, I think that we really won that pairings process.
Yeah, we did, 100%. But that was one of those times where we came out of the pairings there, and I was just like, God, I hope we're right. I hope we didn't screw this up, because it almost felt like too good. But
we had a couple really specific traps to avoid, and we avoided them.
Yeah, exactly.
So actually, and Rob, you helped with one of those traps. One of your comments earlier made me think about, because I hadn't really realized it, about the pestilence rule where you could res and pile in at the end of the turn. And this was the one team in the event that brought that list. And so I was thinking about in the pairings, how do we make sure that this person plays someone who doesn't care about charging? We really don't want him to get paired into Matthias. So instead, we fed him to Carson. And ogres don't actually care if they charge. They're just hungry.
Yeah, exactly. On. Oh, I'm glad.
And that's kind of what happened. And another big thing, too, is that that list just didn't have the damage output for ogres to really care at all. Like, I think there were Giselles and a Deceiver were the two like main sources of damage. And you just can't deal with like 180 wounds with the foot ogres with that level of
well, and the Deceiver's maxed out at like 12 damage. I actually don't really like him personally, but
the Deceiver's really good against squishy little stuff, teleporting back. Yeah, but ogres,
or even not squishy with all that rend. Like you can, if you're worried about it, you can even throw it anyway. Sorry, that's another.
But like wound, you're like wound wise, ogres is not what the Deceiver wants to be fighting.
Not at all. Like it's the opposite. It's actually the opposite. Like anyway, sorry, this is another conversation again, but I'm glad that helped. I actually do. Anyway, yeah.
It was a good point. It was very relevant information. I was like, oh yeah, we gotta remember that.
I should be some kind of mascot next year for Team PNW. I don't play in tournaments, so I can like be trusted with all the information. You know, we'll talk after the show. Anyway, yeah, that's awesome. Oh, sir, I forgot to change the pictures over. That picture of Matthias is amazing. Oh my gosh. He's like, so this is why you're losing. I've completely forgotten what we were even talking about.
We're talking about the Plague Monk build and
oh right, yeah,
and whatnot. And that was another round where it was kind of, I think Matt, you were the last game to finish too, and all of us were done. We're kind of chatting, and Matthias had this idea, and I kind of wish we did actually execute on it, but by that point we knew we'd won by a lot, and it didn't actually matter what the outcome of Matt's game was. And Matthias was like, we should just go up to Matt and be like, yo, dude, we didn't do too well. We're going to need you to 20-0 this one, even though we saw in his table he was losing. Just to like mess with him.
That's awful. But yes, you should have done it.
Well,
yeah.
So people kept walking by that table thinking I was losing. And if it wasn't for one very small misplay, it would have been an 11-9 win. Because what it looks like when you walk by the table is just like this horde of Night Haunt like around my side of the board constantly. But it's because I didn't engage them. And the only reason that it was, I lost 44 to 46. Jeez. And the reason it wasn't 48 to 46 was because in order to, I like over prevented him from scoring in one turn as limited resources. And I was trying to get him down to not have more one turn. And in order to do so, I like tapped the edge of one more point than I needed to, because I was just blocking off space so that he couldn't get to stuff, and I didn't end up needing to block that one, and so I ended up having in turn 5 only one active point to draw from, which cost me 4 points. But it looked like I was just losing terribly. What was actually doing was I was running around like a coward, scoring tactics and standing on points and just never engaging, and so I only dropped 6 points in the game. One was to not having a more that was on purpose, and one was I overtapped, and so had only 1 point in round 5. Just that I could score it all.
That's fair.
So it was a very, very close game, but it definitely, like, every time people walked by, it looked like deeply bleak. Then you realize, like, well, all the roofs and the foxes are up, and that's like most of the army, and they're just off in corners.
And definitely the most important part anyway, right?
But if you look at the castle and the character and the endless spells, which is a total of 150 points, but a lot of massive models, those things are going to die.
Absolutely. Dang. Wow. Honestly, this tournament just looked really cool overall. Like, this looked like one of the more exciting and kind of fun team tournaments I've seen, you know? Like, I've always thought that they're one of the coolest tournaments. And Dan was Matt commenting about how team tournaments are like the most fun. But I was talking about it with Ryan a lot. Our buddy Ryan Bell, he plays 40K. He actually ended up as the #1 World Eaters player in Canada, even after taking like 4 months off from the game. Like, he was that far ahead. Yeah, he was talking about their team tournament experience and doing that whole matchup sort of thing and figuring it out. Like, that just sounds like so much fun, but also just like the kind of team aspect where you guys are like, you know, steel sharpens steel and you're helping each other figure out all the different matchups. And that actually sounds like the most fun part of it to me, almost, you know?
Yeah. And you can tell like all the teams are really bringing their A game to this tournament for sure. While they were there, like, there was a very serious energy. Like, people weren't kind of messing around a whole lot. And actually, Matthias and I shared an Uber with Honest Wargamer Rob on the way back to the airport, and he was saying like there was barely any drinking at all. Like, during the tournament. Like, normally people are cracking beers and having like cocktails during the games, but he's right. Like, I look around, I didn't see anyone drinking. Everyone was just like really hard focused on making sure they were getting the best results. So
do you tell them it's because there's less alcoholics in North America than in Europe by far? Like,
no, because like he's saying that normally he goes.
I'm kidding.
No, but like it's usually at the American tournaments, people are
drinking more,
going pretty hard.
Oh, yeah. Really? Yeah. Huh. That's interesting.
Especially like LVO and the big tournaments like that. Then again, that's in Vegas, but yeah,
that's true.
I think it was just sort of, and people did, were having fun and partying, but they were doing it after the games.
100%.
The other thing about team tournaments is quite nice is it's 4-hour round.
Really?
Which means your clock time is an hour 40, not an hour 30. And your long day, Saturday is not a long day, it's still 2 games. Which means there's plenty of time afterwards to go out.
Right.
Yep.
And those teams games are, like we were saying, you shouldn't scoop, you should play it out, which means they're pretty taxing games.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of 2 more intense games for a day, and then sort of more down in recovery time.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the rounds ended up ending like 5:30-ish both days. So there's still plenty of time to go out, get some dinner, have some drinks and whatnot. And I think we're starting at like 9 a.m., which isn't too early. So
it's just too hard. It's hard to do a 3, like maybe as a 1-dayer, but like I think teams games, sort of 2 games a day is probably the right pace, which makes it hard to do events because like this means it was good because there's 8 teams, but it meant it was only a 4-round event.
Yeah, that's why I appreciate that they're moving to 4-hour, two games a day at the World Championships of Warhammer in Atlanta. Like you're not going to have a 3-game day anymore there, so you can kind of have the same thing. Like that you're going to be able to get to dinner and whatnot. So I appreciate that.
That sounds just more enjoyable. It just sounds like like I've played 3 games in a day just for fun, but that's different than a tournament game.
Oh yeah,
and
B, 5 games a day.
Well, yeah, exactly. And jeez. And then on top of that, though, if you when it's not just a tournament, but then it's also you're being competitive. Like it's, what I mean? Like it's not like you're having fun and, having a laugh. Like you're trying to win for your teammates just as much as yourself, where everything's on the line. So like it just takes more of your mental stack.
I would take that a step farther. You're probably trying to win for your teammates more than for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that because if no one tells me who threw the spitball, you're all staying, or you know what I mean? Or whatever. Like, it's like that whole thing where everyone gets punished because of you. You don't want to, more than like wanting to be like the champion, the person who pulled it out, you just make sure you don't let everyone down because that feels so bad, right? Yeah, I get that. Damn.
Yeah, I think that's right. But I think the positive way to put it would be, you care about your team's success a lot. And it matters to you that you deliver on sort of like what you were set up to deliver on. And
that makes sense.
You can do it just like not. I think you're right that the way people usually think about it is like not letting other people down, but I think that there can be sort of an unhealthy mentality around that. And the healthier way to think about it is like, we're in this together. I care that you succeed. I want Carson to win nationals. I want all of my friends to win nationals. And I have to have some responsibility in making that happen and getting it right and doing it right. And I mean, that ends up producing kind of a different atmosphere for a lot of players.
That's a great point. I think and I was talking about I don't think most people actively think about those kinds of things. I think it's mostly like subconsciously you're going like, I don't want to be the one who let everyone down. But I think if you can take it and flip it as you just did and put that in your active mind, it's so much better. That's a fantastic way of thinking about it. And you guys did the work though too. Like you really absolutely did the prep. But
well, and I think that's the other thing that I would say, like, I think to give everybody on the team their credit, what I posted afterwards was a stat that I thought was very, very cool. I looked through all of our rounds, and there were 3 games where a PNW player got less than 8 points. And what that means is in 32 games of Warhammer, we only had 3 games where it was not incredibly close.
Wow.
And that means that nobody folded, nobody tilted. right? Even in those games, I don't think anybody folded or tilted, because if you had people doing that, you would see more results. Like even if you never fold, even if you never tilt, you're going to have some results like that, right? But like nobody folded, nobody tilted. People kept their head and did what they needed to for the team. And I think that one of the challenges of translating GT performance into a team's performance is that you can be a good GT player, but when you lose, when you start to lose, you lose. And there's a very distinct skill set and a distinct mentality in just not tilting. Everything's fine. That happened. Move on. And I think like unsolicited advice-wise, I think if you're thinking about this kind of like wanting to play Warhammer more competitively, and how you can do that better, like the first thing you do as far as never tilting is like, it was never the dice. Sometimes the dice happen, but in 100% of my games where I got unusually bad dice, there are still things I could have done better to make that margin smaller. And unless I identify those in every one of the games I lose because of the dice, how I could have made the margin smaller despite the dice, I'm never going to grow.
Yeah.
And so just like no tilting, growth mindset, figure out how to get done everything you can done every game. Like that's how you get better.
Absolutely is like that. There literally is no better, I think, advice out there is like the onus. If you always put the onus on yourself, then you're in control, right? But if you blame the dice, then you didn't learn anything, right? Yeah, that's excellent advice. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Devin said, not gonna lie, I don't know about you guys, but I was way more stressed in pairings than I was in games.
Oh my gosh. Carson could probably say how stressed I was in pairings.
Yeah, I think like a good measurement of Matt's stress level is like how much he's preparing for things. And it was literally like every single round, minimum 1 hour before the round started, we're all sitting in a room. We had our own room, actually. We found a room that we just like took for ourselves, which was like one of the side rooms, closed the door, no one's allowed to listen. And we are going to like go through all of these pairings exhaustively just to be like, here's every single permutation of what could possibly happen. And I remember one time when we were playing against Texas, they like put a card down. I don't even remember what it was, but Matt was like, I have to think for a second. One moment. I wasn't expecting this. And he just like starts like looking at the cards intensely. And I was like, oh crap. I
brought out my Excel, reconfigured.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
so, no,
awesome.
It's very stressful. And I hope
a lot of the pairings to be like, all right, I'm going to put this down and I'm going to slide out the next two cards. And then I'm going to wait. And you're going to reveal the defender. And I'm just going to put the next two cards because I knew that was going to be the defender.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm hoping that I learned enough from you this year and I can learn enough from you over the next year to have a much bigger hand in pairings, just because I know that that's something that you've expressed that you would like to happen as well. But I do very much so appreciate everything that you did for the team. It was instrumental. So thank you.
Well, and Chris said the high praise Carson and Matt are giving for an 11-9 loss is awesome. And I actually wanted to talk about that myself. So thanks to Chris for pointing that out. I totally agree. Cause they know, Chris, this is why there's like, they know like how hard they have to fight. Like you're expecting them to like lose more and more often. And so, yeah, you guys know, but I totally agree with the sentiment that it's like, it's awesome that you guys are just like, man, he really pulled it out. They're like, oh, he won? No, he lost. Of course he was going to lose, but he pulled it out. Like, he did his job. Yeah. I agree, Chris. Chris also says he would be the perfect teammate because he's used to losing. So take his comments with a grain of salt, I guess.
A couple of us were making jokes during the tournament, actually, where it's like, it's more relieving to be paired into a red.
Yeah.
Things aren't there. Like if you're paired into
absolutely,
a green, like, I have to deliver on this one.
Yeah.
I think that's true. In some ways it is.
It is.
I find it sort of less, I don't want the red, but like once I'm paired into the red, that is in some ways a lot lower stress than
it takes the pressure off. Yeah, no, I used to fight, right? And I was usually like, when I was entering tournaments for Muay Thai and stuff like that, I was usually fighting against people bigger than me. But when I fought against someone like shorter than me, I was just like, I gotta win this. Like,
Yeah.
I gotta win this. I'll never hit the end of it. You know, I usually win against the bigger guy. If I'm losing against the smaller guy, like, man, I'm gonna get a ribbing, you know?
Yeah, and so like Matthias had that happen 3 games out of 4. And he had this happen last year at Worlds too, where he's playing an attacker list that is being successfully paired into defenders that are green. And then it's like, all right, you better get it done. Don't mess it up.
Yeah. Wow.
And I will, to his credit, for us, we had 4 rounds. He got paired into expected green 3 rounds, and he got it done all 3 rounds. And then when he got paired into a coin flip and lost the coin flip. But like, he delivered on all those things. But that is a lot of pressure to be told 12 is not good enough. You got to run it up.
Wow. Woo. Hats off to him, man. Yeah, I agree. I would be much. Yeah. Oh, wow. And Ricky says, "Best captain ever. Thanks for leading us to victory."
Thank you, Ricky.
Ricky's a good guy. And
Tom says this. What's up?
Oh, well, before I forget, we do promote it in the battle reports more, but he makes the best mats for Age of Sigmar with all the lines printed on them. They look really good, and we're gonna be. Are we gonna use them on Thursday, or is the new one out?
I'll bring it.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
I got one. I'll bring it.
Right.
Ricky was just really good at like providing us with good, widgets and little gaming aids and stuff like that too. Like we all had these little like objective markers that had the PNW logos on them. Each of us got 4 3-inch widgets that had the PNW logos on them. I will say, like, out of every team, I think we had the most like swag of like dice and jerseys and widgets and all that sort of stuff. Like
Dice.
The dice are really nice. Thank you.
The dice are so easy to read, eh?
Yeah,
like
they're really,
in
really
that in that other picture, I think it's with you, Matt. Yeah, you can like read them. They're on like an angle and like underneath you, and you can still read them. It's crazy. Ultra matte. Ultra matte for Matt. That makes sense. By the way, what I just heard you say was Ricky gave you AIDS with his 3 inchers.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's why you won, right?
Yep.
That is why. Okay, I mean,
great joke.
Yeah,
thanks.
I'm just making sure I heard things correct. I'm sorry.
No worries.
So touchy.
Ricky have a store. Ricky has a link to purchase mats somewhere. And maybe he can put it in the chat.
We'll put it in the Ricky. If you want to send me the link to that, or Matt, if you know what it is, we can put it in the Saga of Dice Discord.
Also, it was in our like description before. I don't think it might not be now because we've got so many links in there. Yeah, sorry, it's not in there right now. But...
The big anti-selling point for Ricky's mats, the big reason to buy one, it is really, really frustrating to play on a regular like mouse pad afterwards because it doesn't have every line all perfectly drawn up.
Yeah, it's
you get so spoiled. You're like, I have to measure shit. What is this? What year is this?
I know.
You waste a lot of time doing that too, like measuring out all of the objectives and measuring out, especially on the weird like step deployments. You're like,
I hate step deployment.
My models, like,
God, it's such a waste of freaking time. I wish.
No, the Ricky mat, it's easy, and then you like travel to like some
good.
barbarian, like like outland, like Boston that doesn't have line mats on every table, and you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah. What are you thinking? Yeah.
Yeah, those mats are amazing, and I'm glad that they're making the GHB 1 year long so that I can have it for an entire year before having to buy a new one. But still amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm even noticing that like some of the newer mats are just doing like lines. You know how like in the GHB on the maps they have like the lines just to give you like the quarters or eighths or whatever. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, that still really helps, especially just like your basic deployment zones and quarter lines would be
exactly
is a big help.
And
it moves a lot of security.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just faster, which is what I really like. Like if you get like the quarter deployments, all you need is like 1 9-incher to know where you can deploy. You're like Bob's your uncle.
Yeah.
But like what I like about Ricky's too, and this is basically turned into a commercial for him at this point, but is that like the lines you can't like we have them on like a high definition professional camera on the overhead camera for our battle reports. You can't see that the lines are there, but when you're playing, they're plain as day. So it's not like they take away from the aesthetic either, which is kind of nice. So yeah, get him.
Excellently done, Ricky.
Yep. 6-month GHBs would have been awesome if they were half the price. Yeah, I there's an argument for and an argument against. I feel like the nice thing about the year-long ones is kind of like what you said, and then also the meta kind of develops and has a chance to settle because it never really fully settles even at a year. But then the upshot to it is that like if you get like a bad set of rules like what was it, Bounty Hunters in AOS 3, I don't know if you remember that, Matt, but like everyone hated that GHB, and then luckily it only lasted 6 months. We were like toodaloo, so I don't know.
Yeah, the 6-month GHB versus the year GHB. I'm really torn. I think what I like, the problem is if you have a 6 months GHB, you have a sufficient incentive to just sort of leave it, the core of it, how it is, and then just rotate to the next one.
Right.
They put out this one, and they 3 months in changed priority target, and I kind of suspect if it had been a 6 months GHB, we would have just had to live with priority target as printed for 6 months.
Yeah, because we live with bounty hunters. I totally agree. Yep, that's true. Although, you guys play a lot of games. Clearly, one of the arguments against a year-long GHB is that the maps get kind of stale for people who are playing a lot of games. No,
as long as you're doing 3 month balance patches and shifting the meta,
right?
One of the great things about I play Teamfight Tactics. It's the other game I play a lot, and Teamfight Tactics is the auto battler from League of Legends. I promise this is going somewhere. Warhammer,
it's all good. Yeah, cool.
They have hundreds of thousands, probably a day, of iterations of those results. That is basically like nearly perfect data. I mean, it's how well can they analyze it, but like that data is all available in the same system. And so they produce, bi-weekly, very granular balance patches. And it's balanced to the point where someone who's semi-casual like me, I don't watch the how-to videos. I try to just I'll get as good as I can get in my own brain without someone telling me how to do it, because I just do it while I'm exercising. For the most part, can't really feel the difference from balance patch to balance patch because the balance is so fine-tuned.
Right.
The patches get effectively solved by the best players over the course of the patch, then that causes these tweaks. It's like the very easily identified top compositions emerge. Warhammer does not have that many reps by any stretch of the imagination. It has a relatively small number of games that are actually being entered into BCP, and on top of that, you have wildly varying skill levels. You don't have something like in Teamfight Tactics where it's trying to place you against players of a similar level. And you have wildly varying strength within an army, even if it is part of a strong book, in a way that's relatively difficult to decipher in a scalable way. And so the game remains to a large degree unsolved. You'll have these very obvious outliers, but the game is really hard to solve. And so what that means is when they balance patch it, that balance patch will also be deeply imperfect. And it will always be deeply imperfect because the amount of data you would need to get a perfect balance patch in a war game is never going to be cost effective to get. And what that means is every 3 months, we get this search for what is the new meta, what's too good in the new meta. And what does that look like, and who can find it, and how does it play, and what are the things that counters that? And so as long as we get these 3 months balance patches, I don't think the game gets stale because the meta will change at a faster pace than people can really solve it. They may think they've solved it a weekend, but they're wrong.
For sure.
In those months.
No, and then that's what I was saying earlier about the meta and getting used to it. But like, I don't think that's their argument. Like I think their argument is just like they're tired of playing these same 12 missions. You know what I mean?
Oh, just like they got bored.
Yeah. I don't think they're thinking about it on the level that they're clearly not thinking about it on the level that you are. I don't know many people that are. But yeah, that's basically their argument.
I see. Getting bored never occurred to me.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. That's I
It might be a me problem.
Yeah, no, I think it might be. It might be a pretty unique problem to you. I think that's like the only argument for. The only argument for is just people getting bored and tired of it. Or actually, I guess the only argument for is they can sell more books. Really, like that's all they care about. Like if we make it every 6 months, will people buy it? You know, how does
sure.
it?
I end up with a certain issue is actually like it's a production cycle issue, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
And not just that. Like, I'd rather they do a better job less frequently.
Oh yeah, I think we all agree with that.
Produce the actual books, content books.
True. Yeah, that's true.
I'm really excited for those to come out. My like semi-pledge this edition now that Skaven is out. I'm not going to pretend that I've always been a Skaven player. I literally played Skaven at that event to get ready to play the Skaven book because what I want to do in this edition is play the books as they come out rather than indices because they will be the most useful knowledge that I'll learn in the future as the edition matures.
Wow. Wait, so do you have one of every army then?
No, but I can borrow most of them from people.
Oh,
and I have
cool.
one of many armies, and Ricky has one of many armies that I don't have.
I see. And do you play on TTS as well?
Yeah.
So then...
But for Skaven, Ricky has Skaven, and I'm buying stuff that he doesn't have that I want to use.
Oh, cool.
And then, like, as I won't play every book, but I will probably only play books.
Nice.
For the most part. Like, that's the goal right now.
Neat.
And it's just because I think that'll be the most useful place to learn, and I think it'll be really interesting. And I think Skaven, when it came out, was sort of most like it wasn't that different from the book, but when the indices came out, it felt like as an indices, the rule set was deeper, and I think it's because it was the book rule set. I think generally, whether or not the books are better, they'll be sort of more interesting, more layered than the indices.
Yeah, I mean, they really changed almost nothing. Like, I mean, unless you consider like Thanquil's Menagerie and the other one, like, you know, all we really got was new war scrolls for the most part, and then some slight changes, like the unlimited spell got changed, and yeah, it's pretty. It's as minor as I can imagine it, and I feel like the Stormcast one will probably be the same thing, right? Because like,
wait, what endless spell got changed in Skaven?
Not endless spell, like the regular spells.
Okay.
Skitterleap became unlimited instead of the dumb one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just hoping you were going to tell me they fixed War Fighting Void checks and I missed it.
They did not fix it, but I believe didn't the casting value go down by 1?
Still really bad.
Yeah, sure is. Although I think the bell is one of the better ones, like out there.
Actually, the Vermintide's not bad either. It's just the
Vermintide's not bad, yeah. Anyway, that's another show again. Actually, maybe you want to come on and talk about Skaven. We haven't done our review yet. I was kind of waiting to get some games in, but my life has been turned upside down. So
sure, I won't get to play it for a while though. So if you do it soon, you probably are not going to get a lot from me. If you do it late, I might have a more useful opinion. Right now, this man rattling guns look really good, and I hope it works.
Are you gonna try and?
We're also cornering you with a question live on air, which you don't need to answer right now. It's totally fine.
No, you absolutely
we can
don't.
Talk about it later.
We're not even sure like when we're gonna do it. Like the Skaven one, like obviously it's my main army. You probably don't know this, but it's the reason why I got back into Warhammer. Like if they had existed in Total War Warhammer 1, I might never have played Age of Sigmar, but having said, actually, I was going to ask you: Are you planning on magnetizing your Warp Spark weapon battery teams at all? I've seen some people do it because, like, a lot depends on points, right?
It's a really good question. I should probably build up to the point where you have to choose the modes and then decide. I had not been planning on magnetizing them. It's possible I should be.
Someone did it in the Facebook group that I run with Shu from Rerolling Ones, and there's multiples. That's why I said.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. If you don't want to link me to that, how they do
it. Are you in that Skaven group?
I don't use the Facebook.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah,
I can like log in for that.
I could tell, but just by the way you answered that question, actually.
But I'm sitting here looking at the sprues, so
there's one of them that's more difficult than the rest. I'm planning on just because I just like them so much. I'm just gonna I want at least 6 rattling guns no matter what, and then I'm trying to decide whether to do that or to maybe just build a unit of the Scourgers, because I think those are like I think they're just a little high in points, but I think they've got a really great use. And yeah,
I think you're right that for the most part, the weapons teams at some point their points will sort of sync up to the point where they'll just be interchangeable and equally powerful. And if you're not magnetizing, you're just sort of building for the temporary state of right now rattling's being slightly more efficient.
Exactly.
But the different point tools are actually quite useful because you'll just sort of have so much in a list. You haven't done the Skaven book review. I think that my biggest hope with Skaven is trying to make Vizic work.
He's so freaking. It's like, to me, it's the coolest model they've ever made by a country freaking mile.
He's very cool mechanically as well, and it's a lot of points, and so it's like I kind of think you might be playing with a mild point handicap by having them, but it might be worth it from it's very cool and very interesting.
I'm noticing though that like he basically just dies quite easily to shooting. Oh, word to the wise, apparently he's like impossible to paint with his head attached. So like sub-assemblies is 10 million times easier. Yeah.
Well, the thing is...
Oh, damn it. God dang it. I'm so sorry. I put it out there. People, you need to watch these podcasts, because I've been saying it like every week. The Doom Flayers too are much easier. I don't know if you got any of them, but they're quite easy to do in sub-assemblies. So, yeah.
I got excited and built them already.
Did you? What are you going to do? I'm sure they'll look good anyway. I don't think it really matters because like it's only for freaks like me that are like, I got to make sure that the warp stone inside here looks really amazing, even though you basically can't even see it. So
you know what? It's going to be in shadow.
Yeah, it'll be in shadow. You can shoot an airbrush in there. I don't know if you have an airbrush or not, but
yeah. You'll
be fine. That's probably what I should do too, but nope. I'm going all out.
Carson asks.
Yeah.
Do we have any more? Do you have anything else you want to like?
I think the big thing is that one thing we haven't talked about as a team yet is kind of doing a postmortem. I think that'd be a really good idea to just gather our thoughts as a team on what we think could have gone better about the event and maybe preparing for next year in some way. But one thing I am curious about is just going forward, what do you think Pacific Northwest is going to be looking like? Like selection wise. And I know that that's not going to be set in stone 100%, but it'd be interesting to see like kind of.
So I have thoughts on that. I will say that ultimately I'm not the arbiter of what the selection process looks like. I'm going to chat with Jeremy Cooper about it. I think that it was really great how we did it, but like deeply inflexible, and in some ways I think we got lucky in how it worked out. And I don't think it was perfect, but I also don't agree. I agree that the sort of just pick who you want is not a great method. And so I think that there's some reality between that where you tell people the things that matter and you have people who want to apply. And I think that those things are your placement at the end of the regional season, plus how you actually perform in the PNW Singles Masters tournament, plus sort of how you play the game as an evaluation. You know, one of the things I think we did really good on was getting players who consistently didn't get tilted. Like that's a big deal. And then I do think that we should probably look for some kind of mix between sort of veterans and new players. Like, I don't think it's great to bring back the exact 8 players year over year, though. I mean, since we won the event, there's an argument that maybe that is okay. But like, I think it's good to sort of rotate. I think that's healthy. But I also think that you should take some bets. You're sort of shooting yourself in the foot if you don't. So I think all those things matter. And so I'm starting to talk to Jeremy Cooper, who is ultimately the owner of how we should handle that. Those are my thoughts. They are not the official thoughts of the PW Masters Selection Committee. But I do think what I did align with him on is that we will probably not make that kind of decision until sort of after LDO-ish time frame.
Yeah, the team this year was decided, I think, just after Cake or Death, which I believe is about a month after LVO. So the timeline kind of lines up for sure. And we didn't even really do anything as a team until 4th edition came out, just because it wasn't relevant information to be like practicing and evaluating comps and stuff like that until we knew anything about the new edition. So
yeah, that's right. And frankly, until I got back from Worlds, we didn't do a lot because they didn't want to double. That would have been a lot. And it happened to be after Worlds. How do you find the Masters compared to Worlds?
That was asked by Dan in the chat.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's a really hard question. I think that from a difficulty perspective, from like a competitiveness perspective, the North America Masters was closer to Worlds in difficulty than anything aside from those two is to the North American Masters. So like, if you have this long scale of how competitive stuff is, I would say it's like easily the second most competitive event I've done. And it was closer to Worlds than anything else was close to it.
Wow.
And like cleanly. From like how fun was it perspective, like what was it like community wise and stuff like that compared to Worlds. It was interesting because it was much smaller. Worlds is like 20x countries. Many of them are sort of the like mainland Europe countries headed east, right? And so it's this massive pool of players, and you get to meet some of them, but it's still part of a very large event where there's sort of your cliques and your sort of like people and people you meet, people that are sort of in the metas vaguely associated with your meta, right? So for example, I spent more time with the Canadian team over there, with the English team over there. And Masters, like most of the teams had players on them that knew each other. I literally know multiple people on every regional team that was at Masters and have hung out with them before. And so it was interestingly like more cohesive as an event because like the community knew each other. And Rob came out and did this great job covering the event, but one of the things he said in this, like his hype video, was like, we'll just bring like North America together as a community. And I was like, I know these people, like this is already a community. And so I think it was actually much effectively like zero contention kind of weekend, right? Like it was extremely clean, extremely positive, extremely like chill, high level Warhammer, almost universally, because like these were all people who knew each other and are used to playing each other at these big events across the country. And a lot of them have played together on the U.S. team, and those players are often setting the standard and expectation for how you operate on these regional teams. And so it was, I think, in a nod to how we have operated as a country compared to Worlds, which has some sort of like inter-country tensions in how people play. Just extremely, extremely chill for how competitive it was.
Dang. Wow. Braden said, hey guys, sorry I'm late. Congrats on the awesome win for your team. And
that was just at me, actually. It wasn't at Matt.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. It was only for Carson,
Yeah.
even though it's both of you. Well, I mean, he just got here. He doesn't know. But I just wanted to point out to him that like there was some OBR play at the and it was like a skew list, and it seemed really cool. So maybe you guys could send him some of the OBR lists that were there. I know
The secret is you take Nagash, then you take a 600-point unit, and you throw that unit at your enemy, and you say catch, and you kill some stuff, and then Nagash brings it back.
I mean, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And then earlier, Jim said painting doom wheels teaches a Skaven player a lot about. Yeah, he's talking about sub-assemblies, because I think the minimum if you're doing them as sub-assemblies is like 12, like not an exaggeration. And then Ludivicus said earlier, Rob, it's only money. Buy 6 of each of the weapons teams. I've already got 6, and I'm probably buying another 6.
I was gonna say 6 is not the issue.
6, yeah, exactly. Yeah, like if I stop at 12, I'll be like, good job, Rob. You did a good job. I know I don't need any of the, because like I've got a bunch of those the warp fire throwers from Island of Blood. I've got at least 6 of those. I just need to find them. But yeah.
Dom asked something. Do you feel like you missed anything in your list comp? We 100% missed 160 Vestigor, or however many, 160 wounds of Vestigor. Did not expect that. Yeah, that was definitely a curveball that made pairings harder than it would have otherwise. If we had known that, we might have brought Zinch instead of Foxes, to be honest.
Wow. Wow, really?
It was just such a like random hard red in pairings in a list that otherwise didn't really have to deal with them, that it like messed with the pairings matrices quite a lot. And I think that's because everyone knew Foxes was good, and so everyone bought a specific attack pair of the Foxes. So we totally missed Vestigor. Is there anything else we missed that was big?
Although, like, before you move on from that, that's such an interesting thing that it sounds like they got that, like, the people who brought a bunch of Vestigor kind of got something right. Am I wrong?
Totally. They got a very
right?
specific thing right, which is that Foxes don't do enough wounds to deal with 160 wounds and -1 to wound.
Jesus.
Because it's -1 to wound against you.
Wow. Yeah, that's wild. And then, but I guess that's obviously not something that no one would have to worry about Beasts of Chaos next year, but there might be another army that is the new Beasts of Chaos that someone might see in that sort of pairing situation. So that'll be really interesting to keep an eye on next year.
Yeah. What do you think, Carson? Anything else we missed?
Just as far as like comp goes, I'm still unsure about like 3 main things. Number 1 is cities. Like you said earlier, we just couldn't quite crack it. A lot of teams brought them, but I think in the end, a lot of the cities lists actually didn't end up performing super well. I know there's a couple people like Jake Seguin from Azir did pretty well with them, but yeah, I almost think that us not like last minute deciding not to include cities, like cities almost seem like a bit of a trap where like it just didn't quite work in the pairings process. And then I'm still not sure how I feel about that Stormcast list, honestly. Like it was in a team's environment. I don't know if it, but I also don't know like what it wouldn't.
What would you replace it with? Like what were we missing?
I think. Yeah, I don't know. It's tough because it seemed. Well, I guess it was like our anti-Fox list, effectively.
Effectively, yeah, because it was just and it was anti-Zinch, and we did see a lot of Zinch.
Yeah, but it never got paired into either of those things. But I guess it changed the pairings process to be able to be favorable for us anyway. And I guess it was still good into other things too, so that's fair. And then the third thing was actually ogres. I don't know that ogres needed to be in that comp so much so as like me just being like a hardline ogres player, like bringing that army in.
Well, that's a good thing to talk about. I'm just checking, like, what did Texas bring that we missed? And I think the answer is the only thing we missed here was
German Lefebvre. Bringing
well,
a weird list. Yeah.
I mean, there's an argument we missed, like, a Slaanesh build, but I think that build probably takes a lot of practice to get right. I think the only thing we really missed is the Vestibule. I think that the other thing is, like, we consciously didn't have people switch out of armies that they knew well, as long as those armies weren't like, this is actually really bad. Because one of the things that happens in teams, and I think that there's a extrapolation to how you should think about singles, is that you end up flipping armies to whatever seems more powerful, and you lose that your ability to execute on a clock in the actual event is different than your ability to execute on the practice table, and the reps matter, and doing something you're comfortable with matters. And I would much rather have put Carson on ogres than given him 5 reps with 45 hex race and said, go play that. Because, you know, even a 45 hex race list, like, reps matter. And so we were hesitant to make the adjustments we did because of that. We made them when the case felt increasingly clear. On the margin, you're better off playing what you know and growing in how you execute it and getting getting it right. That doesn't mean it's bad to keep switching armies. I think it's an interesting and distinct challenge to keep switching armies, but I don't think that if what you're looking for is like, how do I improve my 2-3 to a 3-2, you don't do it by randomly hopping around armies. Because, I mean, there's no army in the game right now that if you play it well, you can't 4-1 with. Doesn't exist. There's ones that are much harder than others to 4-1 with. But I think that you know, the figuring out how your list works and like getting the reps in matters a lot.
Yeah, I last year, or it might have been 2 years ago at this point, Skaven had the lowest win rate in the game. So like Gravelords had the highest win rate in the game, and they were still my best army because that's all I ever play, you know, in my spare time. Yeah, and as Ree was saying earlier, earlier than the comment I was about to read, bring the army you know. It's often more important than just a powerful list.
Well, like, the obviously thing that Ree says actually is really pertinent, which is Scooter's playing Slaves to Darkness. I thought he was playing in Ironjaws. Slaves to Darkness and Ironjaws have very similar playstyles, and so it's not necessarily a complete division between like play your army versus play something different. All those things are equal. Playing the style of play of how you like to play, flexing between armies within that style is much easier than playing out that style. Like, you know, we said at the beginning, like, I play blue decks. It's much easier for me to flip to another control-y, large margin reactive build than to all of a sudden go play slaves. I would be much worse at that because it's so much more different. It's easier to switch. It's actually probably easier. It's definitely easier for me to switch between different books playing the same play style than within a book playing different play styles.
Totally. Yeah, I actually tried to get into Zeech, and then I was picking your brain early days, and then I played them like 5 or 6 times, and I was just like, oh man, this is just like even though I love Zeech and I like a lot of things that they do, I was just like, this is not the army for me. It doesn't match me at all. And like, to play it well, I have to fight against my natural instincts. And so I was just like, this is just never going to be, even though I enjoyed painting them and stuff like that. Yeah, it was just never going to be the army for me, unfortunately.
That's how I felt about Slaanesh.
Oh, really?
I have a Slaanesh army, and I played a couple events, and yeah, I just wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, they're cool. Like, they're such a unique aesthetic and play style and everything else, but yeah, I remember and Rob Taunts was playing on the channel before, and like, you know how Nurgle played in 3rd edition was not like a green deck kind of army run in there and smash you, but that's how he wanted to play it. He's just like, I just don't think I can play this army until they change how it plays, you know? So
I think Nurgle is a much more control-y army.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it's not a green deck. I think you're right. It's not a green deck. I think Nurgle is in general.
No, but like, what about in 4th edition? Same thing.
I haven't played it in 4th edition. I've read it.
I don't.
But I think that in general, Nurgle as a book is very focused on sort of durability, debuffs, and space control. It's not like control via speed, it's control via sort of micro positioning and trying to figure out how to use the durability of your models to not get broken. I quite like how Nurgle plays. I hate the aesthetic. I really don't. I've never liked. Like I have a Soulblight army and it's all Fenris wolves and the vampire models because I don't actually like undead gross things. But I have thought about converting a Tzeentch Nurgle just so I can like play the style without having to play with models that look like they have pus coming out of them, which I see no reason that people find appealing.
Yeah, I don't get that either. I got very sick in my 20s, and now just disease in general just isn't funny or appealing to me in any way. But like I do like the humor of Nurgle. So like that's the only thing that kind of draws me in, because like I think Skaven are funny, I think goblins are funny, I think orcs are funny to a certain extent. Flesh Eater Courts are hilarious, although they're kind of a little gross as well. But yeah, if they could add more funny bits to Nurgle, then that might eventually pull me in. But I'm yeah, exactly. And I'll just play vicariously through Kenrick for now, because he's getting into them, so it's fine, right? But yeah. Cool. STD. Are there any green deck armies in AOS? Yeah, I think Slaves to Darkness is one of them. I'm trying to think.
Ironjaws?
Ironjaws? Yeah.
I like green red.
Yeah. Aggressive for sure. I'm not that fast at cycling through the armies, to be honest. Giants would be green deck. Well, you're not really building so much, is just that it is big monsters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Giants might be your Krogworm.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like
maybe like Mordrai Soulblight or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Castelli style stuff. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
100% of Canadians making the podium. Well done.
Yeah. Although that's not true, because like Team Azir, right?
No, making the podium.
Third place.
Third.
What's that?
Sorry. Azir came third place, so he's saying Canadians had a 100% podium rate.
Got it. I'm sorry. I did not. Right.
Yeah.
And anything to throw them under the bus, the East Coasters, right?
Out of the top, 100% of Canadians made the podium. And the average placing of Canadians was much higher than that of Americans.
I guess
can't argue with that.
Yeah. That's oh man, that's too funny. Right on. Well, I think is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up about PNW or anything going on, anything to promote, Matt?
Oh God, yes. I got things
to
promote. Let's see. So the Warhammer Age of Sigmar regional singles masters for the PNW is December 14th and 15th. Invite to that. I think Jeremy Cooper will send them out as you get closer to the event. But there's a couple more qualifiers left. You can see your standings if you go to pnwmasters.com. Jeremy runs an aggregate site where you can see how you're doing toward qualifying. It is a 24-player invitational event. It'll be hosted this year for the first time, not in Bremerton, but in Ballard. It'll be hosted at the Sparkle Party's current venue at the VFW, so it'll be a little more central. Like qualifiers are the top 3 from each of the PNW subregions: west, north, south, and east. And then the top 12 who are not in one of those subregions. The 2 remaining qualifiers are Kippers and Feast of Blades. I think Kivers is also a golden ticket event, probably one of the last golden ticket events.
Yep.
So really encourage people to come to both of those. Feast of Blades is in Bremerton, but is not a blue sky event. I think it is the successor to what was like the Squigmas series of events down on the west, or the coast of Washington. I'm excited to go to both of those events. I think they'll be super fun. And then let's see. We are going to try to expand Sparkle Party. We haven't talked through what that looks like in detail yet, but it's for the Dimensional Cascade event. Expect more from that to come probably over the next month or so for the spring event. We're pretty excited about that. We're trying to grow it this year.
Hell yeah.
That's the most immediate stuff.
And you are doing. I don't know if this is official yet, but you did talk about possibly doing a prize for best name.
Yes. Yeah. So for Sparkle Party, there's going to be three prizes that I want to add. I'm working on the pack. So I'll be TOing the next Sparkle Party. We sort of switch off TOs. The prizes I want to add are best name. I want to permanently add a bounty hunter prize.
Ooh.
And it's going to depend on like what's up, whether or not the PNW Masters team has been announced at the time. But I think it'll be a bounty hunter prize for you get a point whenever you beat a current PNW Masters team player or a former winner of Sparkle Party.
Ooh.
Prize for who collects the most bounties. And we get to argue about exactly this prize, but the prize I really like that I don't know the name for is the person who finished 03 on day 1 that finishes the highest on day 2.
Nice.
I really like that prize because I think it can be sort of rough to finish 03, and I'd like it to be like, cool, you get your own mini event of effectively the 03 bracket, like who's gonna win.
Hell yeah. Okay. Can I propose a name for that prize?
You can. Right now, I think the working title is the Submariner.
I like that. Very good. That's really good. That's really good. For people don't know, that's like the submarine, right? That's kind of right. Okay. What about there's one of Jean-Claude Van Damme's very first movies. He plays the bad guy, and it's called No Retreat, No Surrender.
Yeah, that's good too. Yeah,
it's an awful movie, but an amazing watch. Like the editing is bad in it. It's wild. It's just so crazy and corny, but I would highly recommend. Oh geez, Alex's
I like the boomerang
Alex
as well.
The boomerang is cool. Actually, that's cool. There's like a superhero I think called the.
Yeah, leave it to an Aussie to say the boomerang as well.
Yeah. Whoa, yo, Brayden. Right at the end here. Okay. So
and he asked a really like hard question, so then he gifted memberships. We got to answer the question.
Damn.
That's true.
We're all like just quiet because we're
insights on good FEC lists specifically for singles. I think that the reality is that FEC is in a relatively challenging spot right now. But there were FEC lists at the event, and there was I believe there was a FEC list on Team Azer. And so what I would do is probably look up the event and talk to Frederick and go. I don't actually know Frederick, but my advice is to go bug him.
Okay.
But what Frederick took to the event is Ushron. General's Regiment is Ushron, Crypt Ghouls, Marrow Scroll Herald, 6 more Bag Knights, and then sorry, I shouldn't say I don't know Frederick. I actually have met and chatted with Frederick a number of times. Fred is a great guy. He's very fun. I'm sure he would be happy to talk to you. I just feel bad being like, I am volunteering this person.
Yeah.
Hung out with a couple Warhammer events to go talk to the world. So sorry, Fred. Anyway, but Ushron, Crypt Ghouls, Marrow Scroll Herald, 6 more Meg Knights, and then Regiment 1 is a Cardinal, reinforced schools, 6 more Knights, and royal decapitators. And I think what you will see, and I have seen in the consistently in the FEC lists that seem to be what you would run in the book right now, is Usharon and 2x6 more Knights, and the rest of it seems a little bit more flexible.
That's similar to what I was making, although I had Gourmain, because he can just chill in the chair and do his thing from the back row. But that's interesting. Oh wow, huh? Thank you for asking that, and huge thank you to Braden for the gift memberships. Ludivicus was missed once again, but no one expects him to actually get one at this point anymore. Congrats to everyone who got one, and a huge thank you to Matt for being on. Your insights were invaluable. Whenever you want to come back on, you let me know. We'd love to have you. There's one more thing I wanted to ask you, but it's gone out of my brain. Is there anything else right here at the end before we shut down that you guys wanted to add? No?
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me. I know Carson's usually here.
Usually.
And,
unfortunately.
I really appreciate covering the events, because I do think my big hope is that these teams events help people sort of grow more cohesive as a broader AOS meta and community. I think they're a really good thing to sort of follow and watch, because you get to identify with the team, right? And you get to participate in watching the game in the same way that you're playing the game. And so I really appreciate the coverage of them. I think it's a great way to build community.
Totally agree. And like I said before, steel sharpens steel. So you kind of, you get together and you make each other better players and get more out of the game. Well said, Matt. I really like it. Carson, anything to add?
Nope.
Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week. And again, we're streaming on Thursday. Me versus Andy Selwood, Skaven versus Korn. Be there, be square. And thanks for tuning in. Bye guys.